Chapter 1776. Mao Yang subconsciously struggled to get up. But that heavy and terrifying pressure firmly suppressed him, rendering him unable to move. Deep despair and fear surged from the bottom of his heart. Intense emotions surged in his chest, finally causing his chest to tremble, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Mao Zhen waved his sleeve, and a purple-gold stream of light formed a barrier in front of him. Mao Yang's blood splashed on it and quickly burned away. "Don't dirty my clothes." Mao Zhen's expression was indifferent, his voice cold. Mao Yang felt even more resentful and humiliated. His lips trembled, but he could not say a word, only spitting out a few more mouthfuls of blood. After this torment, his face was as pale as a ghost, and he was on the verge of death. Mao Zhen looked at Mao Fushan and the several elders standing next to him. "Since I have inherited the ancestors' legacy, I will naturally replace Mao Yang as the patriarch. I wonder if any of the elders have any objections?" After a brief silence, Mao Fushan spoke first. "Since the ancestor has already made the decision, we will naturally comply." The other elders nodded in agreement after hearing his words. "We have no objections." This was not because they had submitted to Mao Zhen's pressure, but because they were sincere. In the past they had misunderstood Mao Zhen, but now, everything in front of them was enough to prove Mao Zhen's innocence. Even if he had not inherited the ancestor's legacy, he was absolutely qualified. In all these years, no one had truly surpassed Mao Zhen. He was also the #1 genius and expert in the clan. It was natural for him to be the patriarch. After a moment of silence, the people kneeling in the square all saluted and shouted, "Congratulations, patriarch." Their shouts shook the heavens, their momentum grand. Most people had excited expressions on their faces. The initial shock and confusion had completely dissipated. Only joy and excitement remained. How could they not be happy? Mao Yang had done all kinds of evil. Back then, he had used insidious methods to seize the patriarch's position. He was the shame of the entire clan. Now that he had been demoted, it was reasonable. But Mao Zhen had not only clarified the truth of that year, but also, he had inherited the ancestor's legacy. Such a person as the patriarch was naturally different. Even if he had a special relationship with the legendary three-eyed eagle, it was nothing compared to the recognition of the ancestor. Thinking about it, it made sense why Mao Zhen was able to hide in the coiling dragon pillar for so many years. Wasn't it all because of the ancestor's favor? There was nothing to dispute about this matter. Hearing the almost boiling cheers of celebration, Mao Yang rolled his eyes and fainted. Mao Zhen gestured with his hand, and the square quickly quieted down. Chu Luiyue was secretly amazed. That was exactly what the saying, strict obedience to orders and prohibitions. Mao Zhen had just returned, and she had already received so much support from everyone. She was indeed extraordinary. She winked at Rongxiu. This time they had truly helped the right person by lending a helping hand. Rongxiu's lips curved up, and he held her hand even tighter. This trip to Divine Dragon Island was indeed unexpected. But fortunately, it was more daunting than dangerous, and he even made a profit in the end. Being able to be on good terms with Mao Zhen was absolutely beneficial to them. This time, not only could they leave smoothly, but they could also be considered to have dealings with the Great Void Phoenix Dragon tribe in the future. With this layer of relationship, it would undoubtedly be much more convenient to deal with many things in the future. Mao Zhen said to an elder next to him, "Wake him up." The elder responded and quickly walked forward. He grabbed Mao Yang's collar and gave him 2 resounding slaps without saying a word. Mao Yang's face quickly swelled up, and he was also awakened by the sharp pain. He opened his eyes angrily and saw Mao Zhen and the elder in front of him, who was about to give him a 3rd slap. He immediately understood. He was still here. In an instant, the anger and hatred in his heart turned into panic and fear. He subconsciously shrank back, but his collar was grabbed tightly and he could not move at all. At this time he had lost both of his arms and he had no strength to resist. Mao Zhen smiled, but to Mao Yang this smile was no different from a devil's. "Mao Yang, I know you want a clean death, but how can there be so many things in this world?" Mao Yang immediately had an ominous premonition. "Yo, what are you doing?" he asked anxiously and hurriedly. Mao Zhen raised his hand. A piece of purple gold scale armor suddenly appeared in his palm. Then, a dazzling light suddenly flew out from between his eyebrows. It enveloped Mao Yang. The elder immediately let go of his hand and took a few steps back. Mao Yang's body began to roll on the ground, as if he was enduring great pain. Soon his body began to change. Soon he actually returned to his true form. Mao Yang's roar was filled with deep panic and fear. Mao Jin said indifferently. Don't worry, I won't directly take your life. I just want to seek justice for the 7 of my clansmen. With that, the scale armor in his palm instantly flew out. Chi-chi-chi. An ear-piercing sound suddenly rang out. Mao Yang's body began to roll even more crazily. Soon, scales dripping with blood fell on the ground. Some were still attached to skin and flesh, looking very bloody and terrifying. Mao Zhen was going to skin him alive. This kind of method could be said to be ruthless. But thinking about the things that Mao Yang had done, it made people feel that this was what he should bear. Such a person indeed deserved to be cut into pieces. Needless to say, he had framed Mao Zhen to such an extent. This was even considered a light punishment for him. Mao Yang's roar gradually became softer, as if he had lost the strength to roll and was on the verge of death. Only when the last dragon scale on his body was scraped off did Mao Zhen say, "Send him to 7 Lotus Peak and give him the last medicine. Be sure to let him recover as soon as possible." Yes. Mao Yang was shocked. Was Mao Zhen planning to repeatedly torture him like this? As if to confirm his guess, Mao Zhen looked at him and raised his lips without a smile. "Mao Yang, what's the hurry? This is just the beginning." Digression. In 2 hours, mobile users please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1777. Mao Yang's eyes widened. His scarlet eyes were filled with hatred and madness. "Mao Zhen, kill me if you want. If you drag this out, aren't you afraid of trouble?" Mao Zhen looked at him strangely. "You think too highly of yourself." Mao Yang's chest tightened and he almost couldn't breathe. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but laugh. Not only was Mao Zhen powerful, but he was also good at talking. What Mao Yang hated the most was that he was weaker than Mao Zhen. He had always seen Mao Zhen as a strong opponent, but he didn't think much of him. Nothing could represent a person's contempt more than indifference. There was nothing that could deal a greater blow to Mao Yang than this sentence. Sure enough, Mao Yang became agitated and wanted to continue. However, he was no different from a piece of trash. He couldn't do anything even if he wanted to. In the end, he fell to the ground and lay there in a sorry state, covered in blood. Mao Zhen waved his hand. The people below quickly came forward and took Mao Yang away. Until he was dragged away, the square was still filled with the strong smell of blood. Looking at the mess on the ground, everyone involuntarily quietened down. Their expressions were complicated. Too many things had happened on this day. The clan had undergone a drastic change. It was as if heaven and earth had been turned upside down. Mao Fushan looked at Rong Xiu and Chu Luiyue and sighed in his heart. Who would have thought that all this was because of the arrival of these 2 people? If they hadn't barged into Divine Dragon Island, Mao Yang wouldn't have imprisoned them on 7 Lotus Mountain. They wouldn't have found the opportunity to enter the coiling dragon pillar of the Great Void Temple and help Mao Zhen reconstruct his body. All these things were actually caused by these 2 people. After hesitating for a moment, he spoke. "Clan leader, since everything has come to an end, then, what do you plan to do with these people?" Since Mao Zhen had become the clan leader, their attitude towards these people was naturally different from before. They were much more polite and gentle. Mao Zhen also sensed his gaze and laughed. "Of course I'll send them off." He still remembered the deal he made with Rong Xiu. Now that he had taken back everything that belonged to him, he naturally had to fulfill the demands of Rong Xiu. Hearing this, Miao Fushan and the others were surprised. "That's it?" They thought that Rong Xiu and the others would definitely take this opportunity to make a lot of requests. In the end, they just wanted to leave this place in peace? Rong Xiu's lips curved up slightly. "Congratulations, Senior Mao Zhen. Logically speaking, we should celebrate for you, but we have been delayed here for too long. It is time for us to go back." Mao Zhen walked over and smiled. "What are you talking about? I should be the one thanking you. If it weren't for your help, I would still be stuck in the coiling dragon pillar." He was truly grateful. Those 1,000 years were not easy for him. In the past, just like his clansmen, he despised the human race and thought that they were all treacherous and sinister people. But after this, he had a profound change in his view of this point. At the very least, he valued and respected Rong Xiu and xuanhuan very much. He glanced at Dumpling. Dumpling immediately put her hands on her waist and raised her small face. "Why are you looking at me?" Although the Crimson Gold Heavenly Phoenix and the Great Phoenix Dragon had never gotten along, she was not afraid at all. Chu Luiyue did not know whether to laugh or cry as she pulled Dumpling back. She could feel that Mao Zhen did not have any ill intentions. Not only was Mao Zhen not angry, but she could not help but laugh. "Ah, this little fellow is young, but her temper is not small. Don't worry. Since your master has helped me this time, the entire Great Void Phoenix Dragon tribe will not do anything to you. Dumpling blinked a few times. After confirming that the other party's tone was sincere, she heaved a sigh of relief and patted her chest gently. Phew. That's more like it. She was with Ayu. Mao Zhen's smile deepened. She looked at Dumpling and felt a little fond of her. Yizhao is really lucky. Dumpling's talent was obviously very outstanding. Her soft and cute appearance was especially lovable. The Great Phoenix Dragon clan did not have such luck. Hearing him praise her, Tuanzi couldn't help but grin happily. Of course. Grandpa Patriarch and the others doted on her a lot. Mao Zhen looked at her round, white and tender little face. She wanted to go up and pinch it, but she held back in the end. Let's go. I'll personally send you out. Outside Divine Dragon Island. Time passed exceptionally slowly. Every minute and every second was more and more unbearable for Xuanhuan Jing and the others who were waiting. Nan Suhui stared at the teleportation formation with a grave expression and frowned. Is there still no movement? Xuanhuan Jing could not help but ask. Nan Suhui shook his head. No. But, it's been so long. Xuanhuan Jing pinched the bridge of his nose. His expression was somewhat haggard. During this period of time they had been waiting patiently. They did not dare to relax in the slightest, afraid that they would miss something. However, the teleportation formation was still calm. Gradually they began to feel anxious. Chuning comforted. Although the teleportation formation did not react, Divine Dragon Island did not send anyone over. They should still be safe. If the Great Phoenix Dragon clan discovered that something was wrong, they would definitely not sit idly by. Nan Suhui nodded. No news is good news. Let's wait a little longer. Xuanhuan Jing and Chuning could only nod in agreement. At the exit of Divine Dragon Island's barrier, Mao Zhen personally sent Rong Xiu and the others here. I'll stop here for today. Mao Zhen smiled. There are still some things to deal with in the clan. At this time I really can't leave. Rong Xiu and Chu Luiyue nodded to express their understanding. The Thousand Summit had just ended, and Mao Zhen had just taken the position of Patriarch. There were indeed many things to do. Senior Mao Zhen is too polite. It's already beyond our expectations that you can personally send us off, said Rong Xiu with a smile. Mao Zhen was now the Patriarch and his status was very different. The fact that he was willing to personally send them off was to express his attitude. In this way, even if some people in the Great Phoenix Dragon clan were still dissatisfied with them, they would greatly restrain themselves in the future. To them, this was undoubtedly extremely beneficial. Mao Zhen shook his head and sighed. You have helped me a lot. This small matter is really not much of a reward. If you encounter any trouble in the future, just say the word. I, Mao Zhen, will definitely do my best. Chu Liyue's heart skipped a beat. This sentence was a serious promise. This meant that they would have the Great Void Phoenix Dragon as their backer in the future. Rong Xiu's lips curved slightly. Actually, there's something I really want to trouble you with. Mao Zhen waved his hand. Just say it. Rong Xiu suddenly took out a gold-stamped invitation card and handed it over. In half a month's time you, and I will be married. At that time I hope that Senior Mao Zhen will come. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1778. Chu Luiyue? The wedding is in half a month? Why didn't she know about it? And this invitation card? When did he prepare it? He actually took it out so casually? Chu Luiyue was dumbfounded. Mao Zhen directly took the invitation card. As soon as it entered her hand, a trace of surprise flashed across her eyes. This invitation card was actually made of ink brocade paper. Ink brocade paper was an extremely precious rice paper. It was famous because of its rare materials, complicated craftsmanship, and low production. It was also because of these reasons that the price of ink brocade paper was extremely expensive. But even so, ink brocade paper was still extremely popular, causing people to scramble for it like a flock of ducks. This was because the ink brocade paper was extremely thin, but it was very tough. The sharp tip of a knife could not cut it, and ice, water, and fire could not destroy it. As long as it was well preserved, it could survive for tens of thousands of years. Not to mention ordinary people, even the first-rate families in the Divine Ruins world might not have much of it. However, such precious ink brocade paper was actually used by Rong Xiu to make a wedding invitation card. She really didn't know if she should say that he was too extravagant or that he valued this wedding too much. And the person who was about to marry him. Mao Zhen carefully looked at the invitation card, then nodded with a smile. Don't worry, when the time comes I will definitely prepare a generous gift and personally congratulate you. Rong Xiu's smile deepened. Then you, and I will wait for your arrival. As soon as the two of them walked out of the Divine Dragon Island's barrier, Chu Luiyue grabbed Rong Xiu's hand. Then what's with the invitation card? The wedding is in half a month, why didn't I know anything about it before? Rong Xiu smiled and let her hold his wrist. His voice was low and gentle. The wedding date was decided by me just now. In fact, this date has been postponed several times. This time I don't want to postpone it anymore. Half a month later we will return to the Yuntian Tower and get married immediately. Although his voice was as gentle and soft as usual, his tone was very firm. Obviously he had made up his mind on this matter. Looking at his deep and calm pair of phoenix eyes, Chu Luiyue was suddenly stunned. She suddenly couldn't bring herself to ask the rest of the questions. Yes. Rong Xiu had already mentioned this matter too many times. It was just that they didn't seem to have the right time and opportunity. Thinking it had been too long. My father? Don't worry, I've already sent someone to invite them. They should be arriving at the Cloud Heaven Tower soon. In addition, your friends and subordinates will also go with you to the Cloud Heaven Tower. Chu Luiyue paused. Rong Xiu's lips curved up as he patiently explained. Mu Hongyu and the rest will come. Also, Sun Yi will probably inform the 13 Yu guards after receiving the news. Chu Luiyue widened her eyes slightly and said after a while. Yai. From then on Rong Xiu had been traveling with her. Thinking about it, these things should have been done before that. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows and didn't deny it. He had originally planned to bring Chu Luiyue back from the Phoenix Mountain and wait for everything to be ready before getting married. However, too many accidents had happened later, so it had been delayed until now. Do you blame me for not discussing it with you before? Rong Xiu lowered his voice. But I don't want to wait any longer. Chu Luiyue's heart suddenly seemed to have been hit by something. Her eyes were slightly hot as she nodded with a smile. Me too. Let's go home. Look. Someone's coming. Xuanhuan Jing suddenly noticed something and looked up. Suddenly his eyes narrowed. The two figures in front. Why do they look so familiar? That's Rong Xiu and you, Xuanhuan followed his line of sight and was pleasantly surprised. Although Chuning's cultivation realm was low, he had an indestructible divine body, so his eyesight was not bad. He looked over as well and immediately became excited. It's indeed you, and them. Xuanhuan Jing had already rushed forward. Xuanhuan looked back at the Xian formation and waved his sleeve, causing the light to disperse. Then he and Chuning also followed. Xuanhuan Jing was the fastest and soon shortened the distance between them. Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiu also noticed them and immediately sped up. Taizu. Father. Master. Previously the people of Divine Dragon Island had rejected them outside, and Dumpling had said a lot, so she guessed that they should still be waiting outside. As expected. Hearing her voice, the few of them were overjoyed. Xuanhuan Jing went forward and couldn't hide his excitement. He first looked up and down at Chu Luiyue. How are you? Did you get hurt on Divine Dragon Island? They didn't do anything to you, right? Chu Luiyue felt warm in her heart and said with a smile. Taizu, don't worry. Don't you see that I'm fine? As she said that, she deliberately turned half a circle so that the few of them could see clearly. Actually, she did suffer a little injury on Divine Dragon Island. But those were not worth mentioning. Coupled with her strong recovery ability, there were almost no scars on her body at this time. Moreover, the situation inside was also quite good. Xuanhuan Jing saw that her complexion was indeed good and was relieved. That's good. Xuanhuan and Chuning also rushed over at this time. Xuanhuan first looked at Chu Luiyue and then looked at Rong Xiu. Are you all right? Rong Xiu nodded. Only then did Xuanhuan's hanging heart calm down. As long as he was here, there was no need to worry. How did you come out? Chuning asked. Chapter 1779. It's a long story. Let's return to the Yuntian Tower first and talk about it on the way. Chu Luiyue said. Xuanhuan Jing and the others saw that she and Rong Xiu seemed to be in good condition, so they nodded in agreement. The group went on their way back to the Yuntian Tower. On the way, Chu Luiyue briefly told them what had happened during this period of time. That's what happened. In the process of speaking, Chu Luiyue tried her best to be calm and left out many things. However, after she finished speaking, Xuanhuan Jing and the other two were still deeply shocked. After a short silence, the three of them asked in unison. You met the great Phoenix Dragon's genius, Mao Zhen, 1,000 years ago and even helped him reconstruct his body? Not only was the Great Phoenix Dragon's clan leader, Mao Yang, stripped of his position, but he was also crippled? You have a relationship with the Great Phoenix Dragon's new clan leader, and he personally sent you out. It was no wonder that the three of them had so many questions. These things were too shocking. After all, the three of them had seen many big scenes. The fact that they had such a big reaction showed how terrifying the impact of these things was. But in reality, their reactions were very normal. Any one of the things that Chu Liwei said just now would cause a huge uproar in the Divine Ruins world. However, when she told Rong Xiu about these things, her expression was too calm. It almost made people think that they did not take those things to heart. Faced with their questions, Chu Liwei did not know whether to laugh or cry. However, she patiently explained them one by one. What I said just now is true. Otherwise, how could we leave Divine Dragon Island unscathed? The few of them were speechless and looked at each other. That was true. No matter how strong the two of them were, it was impossible for them to pass through the Divine Dragon Island's layers of barriers without anyone noticing. After a moment of silence, Nan Suhuai could not help but shake his head and smile. I see. You guys have already thought of a way to leave. That's why you didn't come back through the teleportation formation. Chu Liwei smiled apologetically. I'm sorry to have worried you, Master. Nan Suhuai laughed, his face full of pride. What are you talking about? Master is happy for you. Are you, is indeed outstanding. Was this something an ordinary person could do? Only the two of them could work together perfectly to achieve such a result. If this matter were to spread out, who knew how many jaws would drop, and how many people would be secretly envious and amazed? Nan Suhuai was truly happy. After so many years, you, had also become stronger and stronger. Since the matter with the Great Phoenix Dragon has been settled and you are friends with Mao Zhen, you don't have to worry about the Great Phoenix Dragon anymore. This could be considered a blessing in disguise. Xuanhuan Jing lamented as he looked at the two of them. This was definitely not an exaggeration but an absolute fact. One had to know that in the world, there were countless sects and clans that wanted to climb up to the Great Phoenix Dragon. Their strength was even more powerful than those first-rate families. However, the Great Phoenix Dragon was an ancient divine beast. Like the crimson gold heavenly phoenix, it had always been extremely arrogant. It had never placed the human race in its eyes, nor did it have any dealings with them. These years, the Great Phoenix Dragon's situation was slightly better, but it was obviously just a superficial relationship. There was no one who had close dealings with these two clans openly and fairly. Now, Chu Liwei and Rong Xiu had obviously succeeded in building a relationship with Mao Zhen. Moreover, it was a relationship that the other party was willing to help. How could they not be shocked? How could they not be happy? Chu Liwei smiled and nodded. In fact, she felt the same way. Originally, because of Dumpling, she had always been biased against the Great Phoenix Dragon clan. She had never thought that she could coexist peacefully with the Great Phoenix Dragon clan. Moreover, the other party was the clan leader. It was already very difficult for an ordinary person to have a relationship with one of the two clans. Now, she had miraculously maintained a good relationship with both clans. Moreover, the two divine beasts she had contracted also had extremely close relations with the two clans. This was indeed not something that could be explained by the word luck. After the three of them calmed down a little, Chu Liwei said, "By the way, there's another important matter when we return to the Yuntian Tower this time." At this point she paused. Xuanhuan Jing and the other two looked over. Chu Liu's red lips curled up slightly, and a faint blush appeared on her cheeks. Rong Xiu held her hand and smiled. "You, and I have decided to get married directly when we return this time." The Nan clan. The entire mountain peak and the entire courtyard were cold and cheerless. The atmosphere was cold and stagnant, almost suffocating. Especially when they were close to the inner courtyard, this feeling became stronger. The servants were cautious and even their breathing became cautious. This situation had been going on for a month. Ever since the clan leader brought the eldest young master and the second young miss back, it had been like this. Although the higher-ups had blocked the news, many people in the clan still vaguely guessed something. The eldest young master and the second young miss seemed to have suffered extremely serious injuries outside before returning. On the first day they arrived at the Nan clan, they called over all the celestial physicians in the clan. Several celestial physicians stayed in the room for 2 days and 2 nights. It was not until the morning of the third day that the elders came out one after another. However, their expressions were not very good. Some people secretly speculated that the two's situation this time was not optimistic. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1780. In the room, Nanny leaned against the head of the bed with a pale face. She was covered with a thick brocade quilt and her eyes were empty as she stared blankly ahead. She looked like she had lost her soul. Countless images flashed through her mind, but they also seemed to be blank. Nothing was left behind, only a blurry mass. A maidservant pushed open the door and came in, carefully handing over a small bowl made of blue and white bone. "Second miss, it's time to drink your medicine, ah." Before she could finish her sentence, Nanny suddenly pulled out a whip from under the bed and ruthlessly whipped the maidservant's head. The servant girl couldn't dodge in time and was hit directly. A long scar extended from her scalp all the way to the corner of her mouth, easily cutting through her delicate and young face. Flesh and blood rolled and the stench was horrifying. The servant girl screamed in pain and the small bowl in her hand fell to the ground, shattering into pieces. She fell to the ground and a few more shards pierced into her palm, causing her to bleed profusely. The pain was getting worse. She looked up in panic and fear and saw that Nanny had looked over at some point. Her eyes were scarlet and terrifying, as sinister as a ghost. It was as if she wanted to cut her into pieces. The servant girl trembled violently and immediately stopped crying. She knelt on the ground and cried and begged. "Second miss, I know my mistake. I know my mistake." Actually, she really didn't know what she had done wrong to anger Second Mississippi. But Second Miss was angry and it was her fault. During this period of time, there had been rumors in the family that Second Miss's temperament had changed drastically after she returned. In the past she was just spoiled and willful, but now she had become unpredictable, irritable, and would take people's lives at the drop of a hat. In the month since she returned, 3 servants had already died in her hands. As for those who were injured, there were countless. She was afraid that she would be the one to be killed, so she ignored the pain on her body and desperately admitted her mistake to beg for mercy. But this servant girl didn't know that the more she acted like this, the worse Nanny's mood became. The blood in Nanny's eyes gathered rapidly and she almost went crazy. "So noisy. Damn it." She clenched the whip in her hand and was about to strike again when the door was pushed open. "Yi." Suddenly, a figure walked over quickly. It was Nan Yifan. Nanny stopped what she was doing. Nan Yifan quickly sized up the situation in the room, his brows furrowed. When he was walking outside just now, he heard a scream coming from inside the house. He immediately guessed that Nanny must have made a fuss again. True enough. He waved his hand at the maidservant. "You can leave first. Recuperate well during this period of time. There's no need to serve me again." The maidservant immediately felt as if she had been pardoned and thanked him profusely before leaving. The room quickly quieted down again, leaving only a mess on the floor. Anger surged in Nan Yifan's chest and abdomen. When are you going to stop? 1 or 2 days would have been fine, but it had already been a month. It hasn't stopped yet. The entire Nan family was talking about this and it was obvious that they were very dissatisfied with Nanny. Although Nanny was the second miss of the family, it didn't mean that she could do whatever she wanted in the Nan family. One had to know that he didn't have the final say in the Nan family. The elders and seniors were usually very polite to him, but if he did something wrong he would also be punished. Not to mention Nanny. If this continued, how was he going to explain to the Nan family? Hearing the faint reprimand in his words, Nanny's eyes reddened and tears fell. She didn't argue and just lowered her head, allowing her tears to fall on the brocade quilt. Seeing her like this, Nan Yifan's heart softened again. After all, she was the apple of his eye that he had doted on for so many years. How could his heart not ache? She used to be so proud, so it was normal for her to find it hard to accept the current situation. Nan Yifan sighed and walked over to sit by the bed. Be good. Give me the whip." Nanny paused for a moment before she slowly handed the whip over. Nan Yifan had only wanted to leave the whip for her to protect herself, but now he would rather send more people outside than continue to leave the whip to Nanny. After taking the whip, Nan Yifan patted her hand gently and said earnestly, "Don't worry. I know that you feel wronged and upset. But it's not a solution to go on like this, right? Those servants didn't do anything wrong in the first place. If you vent your anger on them, not only will it not help your condition at all, it will also cause the family to criticize you." He paused and a bitter expression appeared on his face. "You know your elder brother's situation. Unless there is a miracle, he will be crippled for the rest of his life. This matter, other than a celestial physician that I trust, no one else in the family knows about it." How dare he say it? He had groomed Nan Yuxing for so many years and spent so much effort. In the end he was crippled just like that. Moreover, he only had this one son. This also meant that the position of the head of the family would have to be passed to someone else in the future. The Nan family was huge and there were a total of 3 branches. The position of the head of the family was usually fought for by the people of these 3 branches. For so many years, he had groomed Nan Yuxing with all his might, hoping that he would become extremely outstanding. In this way he would be able to pass the position to Nan Yuxing. If his bloodline couldn't make it, there would be plenty of people who wanted to replace him. There were countless people who secretly coveted the position of the head of the family. Of course, this was not what Nan Yifan wanted to see. Hearing this, Nanny's tears stopped. She wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes and looked up at Nan Yifan. There was anger and indignation on her face. Of course, the position of the head of the family could only belong to them. But very quickly, her face was covered with a layer of defeat. So what if she was angry? So what if she was indignant? The news that her elder brother's Yuan meridian was crippled and he had become a cripple could be hidden for a while, but not forever. The people in the family would find out sooner or later. And the matter of her being mute, everyone thought that she was unwilling to speak because she was in a bad mood. But as time passed they would definitely find out. At that time the result would be even worse. And the culprit of all this was still living a carefree life. At that thought, Nanny held Nan Yifan's hand and looked at him anxiously. Nan Yifan immediately understood what she meant. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Don't think about this for now. You should recuperate first. Nanny flung his hand away as a desperate and strange smile appeared on her face. She had long guessed that her father did not intend to help them take revenge. He wanted them to swallow all the pain and torture. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1781. Nan Yifan felt a sharp pain in his heart when he saw the look in her eyes. He didn't want this to happen either. His own children were crippled and crippled. How could he not feel heartache and not want to avenge them? But the opponent was Rongxiao. If they were in the right he could still fight for it. But the truth was, most of the blame was on themselves. If he hadn't thought of snatching Rongxiao from Xuanhuan at that time. If Yuxing hadn't provoked the other party time and time again in the god-slaying tomb. If they had immediately stopped when they sensed that something was wrong and stayed away from Rongxiao and the rest, things wouldn't have turned out like this. But it was too late to say anything now. The air in the room seemed to have frozen. Nanny turned her head away and closed her eyes in despair. Obviously, she didn't want to continue talking to Nan Yifan. Nan Yifan felt very uncomfortable with such a resistant attitude. He had wanted to comfort her, but in the end, they parted on bad terms. He knew that it was useless to say anything now. After looking at Nanny for a while he stood up. He pulled the blanket over Nanny wanting to cover her, but Nanny snatched it away. Her actions were crisp and full of resistance. Nan Yifan's hand hung awkwardly in the air. He glanced at Nanny and sighed in his heart. His fingers curled up. I will get someone to send another bowl of medicine over. If you don't like these servants you can get someone else to do it. Don't do this again in the future. With that he turned around and left. When he reached the door Nan Yifan paused. He placed a hand on the door and said without turning back. I know you don't take Yuntian Tower seriously, but Rongxiao is indeed someone you can't afford to offend. There are some things you will understand in the future. With that he pushed the door open and left. After a while, Nanny opened her eyes. The room was so silent that it almost made her panic. She turned back to look at the door and frowned. She had never seen her father so afraid of anyone. Could it be that Rongxiao was hiding some secrets? But wasn't he the holy son of the Yuntian Tower? Nanny was silent for a long time. A trace of struggle flashed through her eyes, but in the end she still took out a green jade whistle. She placed the jade whistle next to her lips and blew hard. An extremely soft and sharp cry rang out. However, it also disappeared very quickly. Other than herself, almost no one else heard it. Even Nan Yifan, who had just left, did not notice. Nan Yifan put away the jade whistle and crossed his hands in front of him. He closed his eyes as if he was waiting for something. About a quarter of an hour later, someone came to deliver the medicine. Tuck tuck. Second miss, your medicine is ready. I'll do it. A man's deep voice rang out, interrupting the servant's words and taking the decoction directly. The manservant was feeling nervous, but when he saw who it was, he was overjoyed. Greetings, Elder Luo Yan. Then this medicine. I'll make sure he drinks it. You can leave first. Sigh. Yes. Luo Yan had a high status, so the manservant naturally didn't dare to disobey his words. He didn't want to come at first. Who didn't know that most of the people who came to serve second miss recently had gotten into trouble? Now that there was someone helping, it couldn't be better. After bowing, the manservant left in a hurry. Luo Yin pushed the door open and entered. When Nanyi saw him, a look of grievance appeared on her face and her tears fell again. Luo Yan's heart ached when he saw her like this. Why are you still so haggard? Is the medicine not effective? Because he was worried that it would arouse everyone's suspicions about her health, he had only come to see Nanyi once since he returned. This was the second time. He thought that Nanyi's health should be much better, but he didn't expect that after such a long time, there still didn't seem to be any improvement. Nanyi shook her head. Luo Yin frowned even more and walked over to size Nanyi up carefully. Actually, Nanyi's injuries in the god-slaying tomb weren't fatal. Logically speaking, as long as she came back and recuperated, she should be able to recover. But after so long, Luo Yin looked at her red and swollen eyes and immediately understood something. Perhaps, it was still the heart that was difficult to treat. Nanyi used to be very lively. Now that she couldn't speak, it was normal that she couldn't get over it for a long time. He sent the medicine over. No matter what, the most important thing is to take good care of your health. Nanyi nodded obediently and drank the medicine. The medicine was bitter, but her heart was even more bitter. Luo Yan's heart ached even more when he saw her obedient and silent appearance. Do you have something to say to me, or? He had specially left that jade whistle for Nanyi. As long as Nanyi blew it, he would be able to sense it immediately, but others wouldn't be able to hear it. This was the first time Nanyi had blown the whistle in the past month. Nanyi nodded, took out a pen and paper, wrote a few lines and handed it to Luo Yin. Luo Yin took the paper and looked at it carefully. Then he was shocked and looked at Nanyi with furrowed brows. Ew. No, I can't agree to it. With that, Luo Yin got up and was about to leave. You have to stay here and recuperate during this period of time. You can't go anywhere. Nanyi tugged at his sleeve and whimpered. Her eyes were filled with pleading. Luo Yin stopped in his tracks. He turned back and met Nanyi's tear-filled eyes. In the past, she often begged him for help like this. Every time he saw this pair of eyes that were very similar to her mother's, his heart would always soften. Even if she occasionally made a mistake, as long as she showed such an expression, he couldn't bear to scold her. But this time, Luo Yin sighed. This definitely won't do. Your injuries haven't healed yet. I can't agree to these things. Nanyi slowly let go and suddenly smiled. Desolate and desperate. Luo Yan's heart seemed to have been hit hard by something. After a long pause, he finally said, Okay, I promise you. Nanyi immediately looked up at him in surprise. In a moment of excitement, she pounced over and hugged Luo Yan's neck. She knew that at this time, the only person she could rely on was Uncle Luo Yan. Luo Yan's hand froze, but he quickly returned to normal and patted her back gently. Don't worry, I will protect you well. Nan Yifan naturally didn't know what was going on here. After leaving Nanyi's place, he wanted to go back to the study to calm down, but halfway there, he turned around and went to Nan Yuxing's place. Nan Yuxing lived in one of the most noble courtyards in the entire Nan family. In the past, this place had always been bustling with people coming and going. But now it was cold and cheerless all the way. Other than the guards in charge of guarding, there was almost no one else here. Of course, this was because Nan Yifan had specially ordered that no one was allowed to approach this place and disturb Nan Yuxing's rest. He walked to the entrance of the courtyard. The two guards immediately bowed. Greetings, Patriarch. Nan Yifan nodded. How is eldest young master? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1782. The two guards looked at each other. My lord, everything is normal. Nan Yifan asked again, did anyone come in the past 2 days? The two guards shook their heads. No one else came except for Elder Nan Yi. Elder Nan Yi was the celestial physician that Nan Yifan trusted the most. He was also the only one who knew about Nan Yuxing's condition other than the people in the god-slaying tomb. After they returned, Nan Yifan handed Nan Yuxing to him. However, a month had passed. Although Nan Yuxing's external injuries had mostly healed, there was still no improvement on his internal injuries. It was difficult to repair a damaged yuan meridian. Nan Yifan lifted his foot and walked inside. It was noon and the sun was shining brightly. Nan Yifan pushed the door open and entered without knocking. As soon as he entered, a strong and bitter smell of medicine rushed to his nose, almost suffocating him. Nan Yifan frowned and looked around. The windows were all locked and the whole room looked gloomy. The faint smell of blood mixed with the bitter smell of medicine was very uncomfortable. Sunlight poured in through the door and tore apart the dead silence, but it could not dispel the aura of death. Nan Yifan walked in. Walking around the screen, he saw Nan Yuxing lying on the bed. Nan Yuxing's condition was worse than Nan Yi's. At this moment he was lying on the bed with his eyes closed. His face was pale and haggard. His face was unshaven and his lips were cracked. Blood vessels could be seen vaguely. His originally handsome face was now a sickly color, and his cheeks were deeply sunken. His breath was weak, like an old man with one foot in the grave. There was no trace of the arrogance of the young master of the Nan family. Hearing Nan Yifan's voice, Nan Yuxing's eyes moved, but he did not open them. Nan Yifan walked over and stood by the bed. He stared at him for a long time before saying, "Do you plan to continue like this?" Nan Yuxing's eyelashes fluttered and he finally opened his eyes with difficulty. However, he did not look at Nan Yifan. He just stared at the ceiling. His eyes were dead and filled with despair and mockery. After a long while, he spoke with a hoarse voice. "What else can I do?" He was already crippled. His originally limitless future had now turned into a bottomless abyss. What was the point of living? In this world, there was nothing that could destroy a person's willpower more than falling from the clouds into a quagmire. Nan Yuxing was the same. Ever since he was young, he had been the pride of the heavens and had been chased by everyone, enjoying the limelight. In a single night he had become a cripple. Everything that had happened in the past had become a thing of the past. How could he bear it? Nan Yifan paused. "Elder Nan Yi has been searching for a way to help you recover your Yuan meridian?" Nan Yuxing suddenly laughed. His voice was extremely soft and sarcastic. "Father, if Elder Nan Yi really has a way, why would he wait until now?" No one knew the state of his body better than he did. His Yuan meridian was completely broken and could not be repaired. Most of the things he said were just words of comfort. In reality, his heart was already dead. Nan Yifan was at a loss for words. He could tell that this was a huge blow to Nan Yuxing. If they didn't have a feasible solution, Nan Yuxing might not be able to survive. The room was silent. Nan Yuxing suddenly asked, "Father, after a while, the entire Nan family will know that I have become a cripple, right?" Nan Yifan frowned. Every word in this sentence made him feel incomparably uncomfortable. "It's all because your son is useless. I have wasted all your efforts over the years." Nan Yuxing laughed at himself. After a moment of silence, he finally turned his head and looked at Nan Yifan. "Father, I want to ask you for a favor." Nan Yifan stepped forward and nodded. "Just say it." Nan Yuxing's expression became a little strange. Instead of dragging out an ignoble existence like this, becoming a cripple and being mocked by others, it's better to just die. Nan Yifan's pupils contracted. Nan Yuxing did not seem to notice the change in his father's expression and continued. "Those people are unreliable. Why don't you do it yourself? Today, in the future, to the outside world, you can just say that I died from serious injuries or any other reason will do. Anyway, as long as you don't say that I have become a cripple." The more Nan Yuxing spoke, the brighter his eyes became. He seemed to think that this was a good idea. That excited and even expectant expression made Nan Yifan feel a chill in his heart. "Yuxing, what nonsense are you talking about?" Nan Yifan shouted harshly. Nan Yifan didn't care about his anger at all, and even laughed in a low voice. "You know it too, don't you? If I live like this, I will only become a pitiful and laughable cripple. What's the point of that? It was better to die now." When people talked about him, they would say, "It's a pity that he died young." Nan Yuxing really regretted it. Back in the god-slaying tomb, he should have just killed himself. Why did he have to come back and bear all this? Looking at his son's fervent and crazy face, Nan Yifan suddenly could not reprimand him. It was as if something was stuck in his chest, making him feel very uncomfortable. After a long silence, he suddenly said, "Don't worry, Father will help you think of a way." With that, he turned and left. Nan Yuxing looked at his back that disappeared outside the door. The smile on his face gradually faded, and a trace of defeat and self-mockery appeared in his eyes. Since they had already reached such a state, what else could they do? The two guards in charge of guarding the courtyard heard footsteps and looked back. When they saw Nan Yuxing come out so quickly, they were surprised. How long had the family had been in there? It hasn't even been a quarter of an hour, right? He came out so quickly? When Nan Yifan walked closer, they realized that his face was rather ugly. The two looked at each other, then quickly retracted their gazes and waited respectfully. Nan Yifan walked over. When he passed by the two, his footsteps paused. During this period, you must keep a close watch on the eldest young master. If anything happens to the eldest young master, Both of you will be buried with him." The two were shocked and quickly responded, "Yes." Only then did Nan Yifan leave. Nan Yifan returned to the study with a heavy heart and sat alone for a long time. In the Divine Ruins world, there was indeed a top figure who might be able to help Nan Yuxing repair his Yuan meridian. But that person was not easy to get along with and had a very strange temper. Even if he personally went, he might not be able to persuade him. If he had any other choice, he would not want to have anything to do with him. But when he thought of Nan Yuxing begging him to end his life, Nan Yifan did not care about anything else. After struggling for a long time, when dusk fell, the afterglow of the setting sun shone in through the window. A trace of determination flashed in his eyes, and he finally stood up. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 1783. Invite Elder Nan Yi and Elder Wu Peng over. Nan Yifan ordered the people outside. The two elders quickly rushed over and entered the study one after another. Nan Yifan was writing something on the table. "Master." The two elders bowed together. Nan Yifan nodded and didn't stop writing. The two elders tactfully waited in silence. About half an hour later, Nan Yifan finally stopped writing. He picked up the paper and read it carefully before looking at the two elders in front of him. "I invited the two elders here today because I have something important to discuss." Nan Yifan went straight to the point. "I plan to go out for a trip. It will take about 10 days. During this time, I'll leave everything in the family to the two of you." The two elders were astonished. Elder Nan Yi asked, "Where are you going, Master? Is it going to take that long?" Nan Yifan was very strong and could travel quickly. Under normal circumstances, even if he wanted to go out for business, it wouldn't take more than 10 days. Moreover, the Nan family was in an extremely sensitive and critical period. If he left now and something happened, Yuxing's condition can't be delayed any longer. "I know someone who might have a way, and I plan to ask him personally. If he can cure Yuxing's illness, that would be the best. If not, then I'll have no regrets." Elder Nan Yi was even more surprised. There's such a person in the world? He was a celestial physician, an extremely powerful existence among celestial physicians. However, he was still helpless in the face of Nan Yuxing's condition. Someone who could cure Nan Yuxing. Wouldn't that be better than him? That was a person who only existed in rumors. If you can really ask this person to cure eldest young master's illness, that would be great. Elder Wu Peng wasn't so optimistic. He glanced at Nan Yifan and saw that he didn't look relaxed. After thinking for a moment, after thinking for a while, he asked, "Master, is this person very difficult to ask?" Nan Yifan smiled bitterly and nodded. It wasn't just difficult to ask, there were many other troubles. This was also why he didn't choose this path when Nan Yuxing was first crippled. If it wasn't for Nan Yuxing's words today, he wouldn't have done it no matter what. Now there was really no other way. Yuxing and Yi's situation isn't very good right now. Many people in the clan are watching them. You must pay more attention. Before I return, you must not reveal their situation to anyone. Furthermore, my whereabouts this time around are to be kept a secret. If anyone asks, just tell them that I'm in closed-door training." The two elders answered and saluted. "Rest assured, Patriarch." Only then did Nan Yifan feel relieved. He handed the piece of paper he had written earlier to Elder Wu Peng. "If someone discovers that something is wrong and I haven't returned in time, Wu Peng, you will take over the responsibility of the Patriarch. This handwritten letter will be kept as a keepsake." Elder Wu Peng's expression froze. At this point, he had a faint premonition that Nan Yifan's trip would be very dangerous. He took the letter with both hands, hesitated for a moment, and said, "Patriarch, since this trip is dangerous, then, should we add more people?" "That's not necessary." Nan Yifan lightly waved his hand. A bright teleportation formation suddenly appeared in the middle of the study. He lifted his foot and walked over. "I'll handle this matter myself. You just have to stay here and watch over everything." Seeing that he had made up his mind, the two elders didn't try to persuade him. "Farewell, Patriarch." Nan Yifan nodded. The next moment, light flashed. The teleportation formation slowly rotated. Nan Yifan's figure soon disappeared. Yintian Tower. Everyone had received the news in advance that the Holy Sun would return with the princess today. Thus, the elders had gathered in the ethereal hall early in the morning and were waiting. Everyone looked out of the hall from time to time. Previously, the Holy Sun said that he would go to the Phoenix God Mountain to bring the princess back. Why did it take so long? Speaking of which, it's strange. Wasn't the princess always in Lingxiao Academy? Why did she suddenly go to the Phoenix God Mountain? That's because the princess and the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan have a lot of conflicts. Don't you know that the princess has contracted with a Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix? Hiss. Are you serious? Didn't they say that ancient divine beasts don't contract with humans? Then the princess's Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix is? Actually, I don't know if the princess is too lucky or too unlucky. Her Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix is actually the Crimson-tailed Phoenix from before. There are so many Crimson-tailed Phoenixes in the world, but there are very few who can advance further. It has to be said that this is an opportunity that ordinary people can only envy. But this is where the trouble lies. If it was another divine beast, there wouldn't be any problem. But what kind of existence was the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix? For so many years, they had almost never interacted with humans. How could they let this matter go so easily? That's true. It seems that the Scarlet Gold Heavenly Phoenix clan's patriarch, Zhao, personally wrote a letter to the Spirit Firmament Academy, asking the princess to personally visit. His Highness the Holy Sun went down for so long before returning. In other words, the Holy Sun must have paid a heavy price to help Xuanhuan this time. Everyone discussed animatedly. Most of them had the same opinion about this matter. After all, the Great Void Phoenix Dragon clan was famous for being arrogant and prideful. Especially Zhao, he was very difficult to deal with. It wasn't surprising that they would think this way. 36 Respected Elder Ming sat in his seat and leaned against the back of the chair. He listened to the various discussions with a relaxed expression. Since the Holy Sun has brought the princess back, it means that the matter has been successfully resolved. What's there to worry about? The hall fell silent for a moment. That was true, but who knew what the inside story was? Someone asked. 36 Respected Elder Ming, aren't you worried at all? That Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan is not to be trifled with. 36 Respected Elder Ming laughed out loud. So what? Don't forget that the princess's Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix has been with her since a few years ago. It's just a coincidence that it broke through now. Even if the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan wants to do something, they have to be reasonable, right? Besides, the Holy Sun and the princess aren't ordinary people. How can they be bullied by them? These words were really irrefutable. The person who asked the question still wanted to say something, but he was stopped by the person next to him. Don't ask. 36 Respected Elder Ming is famous for being protective of our princess consort. Even if there's really any trouble because of this, he won't say anything bad about the princess. Hearing this, that person swallowed the rest of his words. At this moment, someone hurried in from outside. 36 Respected Elder Ming, Xuanhuan is here. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1784. The hall instantly fell silent. Quite a few people looked surprised. Xuanhuan? Who is that? It sounds like he's from the princess consort's side? 36 Respected Elder Ming's eyes lit up and he stood up. Hurry up and invite him in. Yes. The guards retreated respectfully. Only the people in the hall were left looking at each other. Respected Elder Pure Dust probed. 36 Respected Elder Ming, this Xuanhuan, may I know who he is? 36 Respected Elder Ming chuckled. He is the princess consort's father. Everyone understood. It was indeed that person from the Tianling dynasty. But why did he suddenly invite him over? Suddenly, someone seemed to have thought of something. Could it be that His Highness is planning to hold a grand wedding? 36 Respected Elder Ming stroked his beard with a smile. This was a tacit agreement. Many people were stunned on the spot and it took them a while to react. Actually, it was indeed time for His Highness to hold a grand wedding. After all, it had been a long time since the princess consort selection. During this time, His Highness had mentioned a few times that he wanted to hold a grand wedding, but it was delayed by various things. As a result, everyone gradually forgot about this matter. Now that they suddenly heard it, it was inevitable that they would be surprised. No wonder the princess consort's father was invited. Since their daughter was getting married, their parents naturally had to come. Soon, an unfamiliar figure appeared outside the hall. The guard's voice sounded. Everyone turned to look at him. Most of them were curious about what the princess consort's family was like. Xuanhuan came to the front of the hall and looked up. The ethereal hall. It was grand and dignified. Even before they entered, they could already feel a heavy pressure pressing down on them silently. Xuanhuan recalled what he had seen and heard along the way, and he still felt like he was in a dream. This was the place where Yuer was now? Xuanhuan had heard of the Divine Ruins world and later he learned a lot about it, including the Yuntian Tower. He knew that any sect in the Divine Ruins world was stronger than the Tianling dynasty. Among them, the Yuntian Tower was one of the best. However, when he really arrived here, he realized that everything was even more. For a moment, Xuanhuan did not know what words to use to describe his inner feelings. He only felt that something was surging between his chest and abdomen. Lord Xuanhuan, all the revered elders are waiting inside, please. With a warm smile on his face, Yuemo politely and respectfully invited Xuanhuan in. Although Xuanhuan was the Tianling emperor, they were currently in the Divine Ruins world, so it was naturally inappropriate for him to address him as such. After thinking for a while, Xuanhuan took the initiative to suggest that he should call himself that. In any case, it was just a title. The most important thing was to come and see you. Xuanhuan nodded and walked into the main hall. The moment Xuanhuan came in, countless eyes fell on him. He looked to be in his 40s and wore a navy blue brocade robe. Although there were traces of age on his face, it still couldn't hide the handsomeness and elegance of his youth. Xuanhuan's appearance was indeed somewhat similar to his. Most importantly, he exuded an extraordinary aura. Even though he came from outside the Divine Ruins world, he was still able to walk calmly in the ethereal hall where experts gathered. Many people thought to themselves, the people of the Xuanhuan family all seem to have such vigor? Be it Xuanhuan or the current Xuanhuan, they didn't seem to know what fear and cowardice were. People outside of the Divine Ruins world, even if they were born as monarchs, would often show some cowardice and fear when facing them. However, Xuanhuan was different. Lord Xuanhuan, you're finally here. 36 esteemed Elder Ming stood up and walked over with a smile. Xuanhuan swiftly assessed the situation in the main hall and determined that the old man before him was the one with the highest standing in the hall. Sensing the other party's goodwill and welcome, Xuanhuan felt slightly relieved. He immediately bowed with a smile. Paying respects to 36 esteemed Elder Ming. 36 esteemed Elder Ming was surprised. You recognize me? He didn't remember meeting Xuanhuan before. Xuanhuan nodded with a smile. Yuemo mentioned it on the way here. I noticed that you have an extraordinary disposition, so I thought that it should be you. Everyone present could tell that he was trying to curry favor with Xuanhuan. But so what? 36 esteemed Elder Ming was an esteemed figure. Even those from the Yuntian Tower had to be respectful to him, let alone Xuanhuan, an outsider from the Divine Ruins world. Besides, 36 esteemed Elder Ming was an extremely picky person. He wouldn't be interested in just anyone trying to curry favor with him. Ah, Lord Xuanhuan is too polite. 36 esteemed Elder Ming burst into laughter upon hearing those words. Clearly he was very pleased with Xuanhuan's words. This also meant that his attitude toward Xuanhuan was very friendly. Many people exchanged glances with one another. It seemed like 36 esteemed Elder Ming really thought highly of Princess Yu. Otherwise he wouldn't have given Xuanhuan so much face. The Inceptive Sage and Princess Yu are currently rushing back, and they should be back today. Lord Xuanhuan, do you want to wait for them together? 36 esteemed Elder Ming knew that Xuanhuan must be worried about his daughter, so he took the initiative to explain. Only then did Xuanhuan understand. No wonder they hadn't seen you, or even though they had been here for so long. So it's because she hasn't returned yet? He nodded. Then I'll have to trouble you, 36 esteemed Elder Ming laughed. What's so troublesome about this? Lord Xuanhuan, just follow me. 36 esteemed Elder Ming actually brought Xuanhuan to the innermost part of the hall and pointed to the first seat on the right. Lord Xuanhuan, please take a seat. Xuanhuan hesitated for a moment. I'm afraid, this isn't appropriate, right? In this hall, the chairs were divided into two sides. 36 esteemed Elder Ming sat on the first seat on the left. He asked him to sit on the first seat on the right. 36 esteemed Elder Ming said, "You're the Princess Yu's father and your status is honorable. Naturally, you can sit on this seat. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network." Of course, the wine has to be the best. Honored guest? Are you talking about that Xuanhuan? The tall and thin man laughed. Haven't you noticed that he's just a demigod? He's not even a true god-level expert. How could such a person become a distinguished guest of our Yuntian Tower if it wasn't for his great luck and the princess's blessing? The disdain in his voice was undisguised. The round-faced woman didn't expect his words to be so direct and unpleasant. She was stunned for a moment. A moment later she stammered. But he's still the princess consort's father. Don't you think it's inappropriate for you to say that? What's inappropriate about it? Aren't I speaking the truth? The tall and thin man lifted the wine jar in his hand and sneered. In the world of gods, the strong are respected. He doesn't have the strength to back it up, so no one will think highly of him. Do you think that all of the elders in the ethereal hall are respectful toward him? I dare say that most of them don't think much of Xuanhuan at all. The round-faced woman was rendered speechless. Those words were unpleasant to the ears, but they made sense. The reason why they were so polite was because of the Holy Son and the princess consort. However, if one were to talk about the Holy Son of the ethereal hall, there were only a handful of them who truly acknowledged and welcomed him. The other woman who had been silent all this while spoke up. No matter how strong he is, he's still the princess consort's father. Regardless of how powerful he is, his standing in our Yuntian Tower won't be low. Besides, the Holy Son is married to Miss Xuanhuan. No matter what, Miss Xuanhuan is outstanding in all aspects. She was beautiful and her words were gentle. Hearing her words, the tall and thin man's expression softened significantly. You're right. Actually, I just feel that. Your Highness, marrying this consort is still a little. He paused for a moment. There are many noble ladies in the world of gods who admire our Holy Son. If we can form a marriage alliance with them, the situation will be very different. The smile on the woman's face remained unchanged. Our princess consort is also outstanding, isn't she? That senior Xuanhuan Jing is a supremacy blacksmith. A supremacy blacksmith is indeed formidable, but compared to those sects with deep foundations. The tall and thin man shook his head. He didn't finish his words, but the meaning behind his words was clear. The round-faced woman glanced at the two of them and said hesitantly, "But I heard from the revered elders that other than Xuanhuan Yu, the Holy Son has invited many of the princess consort's friends to his wedding. His Highness values the princess consort a lot." The tall and thin man didn't think much of it. The princess consort has no foundation in the world of gods. Naturally, he has to invite more people to make it more lively. Otherwise, wouldn't the scene be unbearable? The beautiful woman smiled. "That's enough. These are not things we can discuss. It's fine to talk about it in private, but don't let others hear it. Let's go. If we wait any longer, we won't have time to get the wine." After saying that, she took the lead and walked forward. The remaining two didn't say anything else and followed behind her. After their figures gradually disappeared into the distance, the void fluctuated and a figure walked out. She was wearing a red dress and her figure was slender and exquisite. Her black hair hung down, which made her snow-white face even more beautiful. It was Chu Luiyue. She looked in the direction where those people left and raised her eyebrows slightly, revealing a mysterious smile. It seemed that many people in the Yuntian Tower had such thoughts. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1786. Originally she had come back with Rong Xiao and the others. However, after hearing the news that her father had arrived, she decided to go back and change her clothes before going to meet him. During this period of time she had been busy running around. Although there weren't any injuries on her body, she still looked a little travel-worn. This was the first time she wanted to meet her father in the Divine Ruins world. Naturally, she wanted to show her best appearance so that her father could be at ease. She didn't expect that the moment she arrived, she would hear those people mention her and her father. She simply set up a barrier and hid. Just like that, she listened to their conversation. "Ah, you?" Dumpling asked in her heart. "Aren't you angry that they said that about you?" When she heard those words just now, she almost couldn't help but rush out. Chu Luiyue chuckled. "What's there to be angry about? They're telling the truth." She was very clear about what kind of place the Divine Ruins world was. Here, the strong preyed on the weak and the strong were respected. She wasn't from an aristocratic family, so there was nothing to argue about. Even if there was a Taizu now, the Taizu had always been working alone. Although they had made an extremely high reputation, it was difficult for two fists to fight against four hands. Just relying on the Taizu alone, they couldn't support the Xuanhuan family. The sects and families that were able to establish themselves in the Divine Ruins world all had top-notch god-level experts in their ancestors. Furthermore, they had passed down the power of their bloodline from generation to generation. They had a deep accumulation and foundation. Indeed, they couldn't be compared to them. Hearing Chu Luiyue's words, Dumpling snorted angrily. "I don't care. They said that about you, so they should be punished. I've already memorized their voices. The next time I see them, I'll definitely teach them a lesson." She wasn't even afraid of Grandpa Patriarch, so why would she be afraid of these people? Chu Luiyue's brows twitched slightly. She really liked Dumpling's ability to hold grudges. However, Dumpling, I know you can beat 1, 2 or even 3 of them. But can you beat more than that? Dumpling was stunned. There must be a lot of people in Yuntian Tower who think this way. Even if we take care of a few of them, it still won't change their minds. Dumpling hesitated. Then what should we do? Chu Luiyue raised his head slightly and looked at Du Ming Peak. Gazing upward, Zhang Xian could already see the majestic ethereal hall. Needless to say, almost all the important figures in the Yuntian Tower were gathered there. Her eyes flickered as if thousands of stars were sprinkling down, and the light was fragmented. If you want them to acknowledge your position, the only way is to become stronger than them. At this moment, a familiar voice sounded. You, Chu Luiyue turned around and saw that Rong Xiu had unknowingly appeared behind her. He had also changed into a snow-white robe, even though his previous set was also very clean. Have you been waiting for long? Previously they had agreed to meet here. Chu Luiyue shook her head with a smile. No, I just arrived. Rong Xiu walked closer. Standing here, he could even smell the faint fragrance of her body after bathing. When he lowered his eyes slightly, he could see her beautiful face. Under her smooth and full forehead were 2 fan-like thick and long eyelashes. Her nose was tall and straight, and he could vaguely see her cherry lips. After this period of running around, she seemed to have slimmed down, but her figure seemed to have become more slender, tall, and exquisite. Unknowingly, the youthful aura of a young girl had already disappeared. She was like a flower that was gradually blooming, gradually revealing her beauty and brilliance. Just a glance was enough to make one's heart waver. She was becoming more and more similar to her previous appearance. Rong Xiu. At this moment, Xuanhuan Jing and the others had also rushed over. Earlier, Rong Xiu had specially arranged a place for them to tidy up. Thus, at this moment, the 3 of them were no longer haggard and they looked much more energetic. Rong Xiu's lips curled up. Since everyone is here, let's head to the ethereal hall together. His Highness Inceptive Sage has arrived. His Highness Consort has arrived. Everyone who was waiting in the ethereal hall could not help but widen their eyes in shock. Everyone turned their gazes toward the entrance. 2 figures were walking in side by side. The man on the left was dressed in a snow-white robe. He had a tall figure and a seductive appearance. However, he exuded an indescribable elegance that made one subconsciously look up to him. The woman standing by his side wore a red dress that fluttered in the wind. She was slender, tall, and peerlessly beautiful. She clearly had an extremely beautiful and exquisite appearance, yet her eyes were clear, and penetrating. She faintly carried a piercingly cold heroic aura, and it was especially eye-catching. The 2 of them walked side by side against the light, and they appeared before everyone's eyes together. A faint layer of light shrouded their bodies. At a glance, it was as though 2 immortals had arrived hand in hand. What a pair. At this moment, everyone in the hall couldn't help but be impressed. Putting everything aside just in terms of appearance and disposition, the 2 of them were indeed a perfect match. Just looking at them like this was enough to delight one's eyes. 36 esteemed Elder Ming was the first to react. He stood up with a smile and walked over to greet them. Welcome back, Your Highness Inceptive Sage and Princess Consort. As soon as he moved, everyone immediately reacted and bowed as well. We welcome back, Your Highness Inceptive Sage and Princess Consort. Chu Luiyue's gaze skipped over these people and landed on the figure at the deepest part of the hall. She couldn't be any more familiar with that figure and that appearance. Shang Guanyu stood up and wanted to walk over, but he realized that his heart was pounding furiously. His legs had stiffened and he was unable to move at all. His eyes were fixated on the face that he had been thinking about day and night. With trembling lips, he finally managed to call out. Where? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from LoveNet. Chapter 1787. Chu Luiyue's eyes stung as she walked over quickly. Father. Seeing that she had moved, Shang Guanyu hurried over. The father and daughter were speechless when they saw each other. Shang Guanyu looked at her from head to toe, and something seemed to be surging in his eyes. After a while he said, You've lost weight. Thousands of words condensed in his chest, but his throat was extremely dry. In the end he could only say such a short sentence. There was a slight tremor in his voice. Chu Luiyue blinked and the tears in her eyes disappeared. She smiled brightly. Long time no see. Father, how are you? Shang Guanyu hurriedly said. Good. Father, everything is fine. Tianling is also fine. I just miss you. How could he not miss her? When they parted last time, he thought that she would only stay in the world of divine ruins for a short period of time and would return soon. Who knew that so much time had passed in the blink of an eye? She didn't go back, but he came here. Is it too hard for you here? Xuanhuan looked at her face, which had obviously lost a little weight, and his heart ached. Chu Luiyue smiled like a flower. Father, you're worrying too much. Look at me, my strength has increased a lot. Xuanhuan noticed that her aura had indeed increased a lot compared to when they parted. You've broken through to the high god level? Xuanhuan asked in shock. Chu Luiyue nodded and then took his hand. It's a long story. I'll explain it to you in detail when we have time later. Her father knew almost nothing about everything that had happened to her in the world of divine ruins. He didn't know that she had broken through to the high god level when she came to the world of divine ruins a few years ago. She didn't tell her father before because she was afraid that he would be worried. But now it was indeed time to tell him. Xuanhuan nodded vigorously. I'll listen to you. As long as you're willing to tell me, I'm willing to listen. Chu Luiyue's heart warmed. At this time, Rongxiu also came forward and saluted Xuanhuan. I haven't formally introduced myself to you before. Junior Rongxiu, the holy son of the Yuntian Tower, greets Lord Xuanhuan. Rongxiu's attitude was very respectful and polite. Xuanhuan looked at him with emotion. In fact, he already knew that Rongxiu's identity was unusual, but he didn't expect it to be even more shocking than he expected. The ruler of a first-rate family, the famous war god of the divine ruins world. In the past, he only thought that Rongxiu was gentle, polite, and had an extraordinary temperament. No matter what situation he encountered, he was always calm and collected. Now that he saw Rongxiu again, Xuanhuan finally realized that Rongxiu's calm aura was the reason for his strong abilities. How could an ordinary person have such an aura? I'll have to trouble you to take care of you, during this period. Xuanhuan said. Rongxiu chuckled. This is what Rongxiu should do. Of course he would protect his woman. Xuanhuan breathed a sigh of relief. Originally, he was a little worried that the gap between their identities was a little big, but judging from Rongxiu's attitude, he didn't have to worry about this. You didn't misjudge him. At this moment, another announcement was heard. Everyone in the hall turned their heads and saw 3 figures walking towards them. Many people knew the one at the front. It was the famous Xuanhuan Jing. The old man beside him had white hair and a sage-like demeanor. The aura on his body was also not to be underestimated. It was the dean of Lingxiao College, Nan Suhuai. Nan Suhuai was very famous, but not many people had seen him before. After all, only a few people in the entire Yuntian Tower had been to Lingxiao College. In the past few years, Nan Suhuai had disappeared without a trace. He hadn't appeared much, so there were even fewer people who knew him. Many people were surprised. As the dean of Lingxiao College, Nan Suhuai had always maintained a neutral attitude. He rarely went to other aristocratic families in the divine ruins world. But now he had come directly to Yuntian Tower. Did he come for Xuanhuan? Some people glanced at the red-clothed woman standing in the middle of the hall. They had heard that Xuanhuan was actually Nan Suhuai's personal disciple. Moreover, Nan Suhuai valued and doted on her a lot. Now it seemed that the rumors were true. Nan Suhuai came to Yuntian Tower for her without hesitation. His appearance with Xuanhuan Jing was enough to show his position. He was here to support Xuanhuan. The people in the hall exchanged greetings with Xuanhuan Jing and Nan Suhuai one after another. However, when they saw the third person, they were surprised and at a loss. Who was this person? Chu Ning frowned slightly when he sensed those sizing-up gazes, but he quickly returned to normal. Indeed, he was the person with the lowest background here. If it wasn't for Yu he wouldn't even have the chance to go to the Tianling dynasty, let alone come to the divine ruins world and be in the same room with people from a first-rate aristocratic family like Yuntian Tower. If it was in the past, he might have been nervous and perturbed when facing this situation. But now he wasn't. He had experienced too much during this period of time. Countless pain and torture couldn't make him bow his head. Now this was just a small matter. He had to admit that although those nightmarish days had brought him deep pain, it had indeed caused him to change greatly from the inside out. He had never thought of that before, but now he felt that it was just SOSO. Because of this, Chu Ning's attitude was exceptionally magnanimous. He stood beside Xuanhuan Jing and Nan Suhuai. Although his aura couldn't be compared to theirs, his calm attitude didn't lose out at all. Someone couldn't help but whisper. Strange, he's just a stage 1 warrior. How can he have such an aura? A stage 1 warrior was even worse than many children in Yuntian Tower. However, his expression was magnanimous, as if he didn't feel embarrassed at all. Many people heard this. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows slightly. Perhaps because he was afraid of Rong Xiao and the others, the person who spoke was actually quite polite. However, it was hard to say what he was thinking. Chu Luiyue was calm and composed, and she wasn't angry. She knew what these people were really thinking, and she also understood why they had such a reaction. But there was nothing to be concerned about. Chu Ning had the indestructible divine body. As long as he cultivated well, he would definitely advance by leaps and bounds. At that time, many of the people here would probably be defeated by him. Father, let me introduce you. Chu Luiyue pulled Xianhuan over. Since you know Taizu, I won't say much. This is the dean of Lingxiao College and also my master. And this is my father when I was in Yaochen. Her words sounded a little awkward. Xianhuan Yu looked enlightened. You are Chu Ning? Chu Ning also understood the identity of the person in front of him when he heard Chu Luiyue address him. His heart tightened slightly. Yes. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1788. Chu Ning had been able to remain calm in the face of so many people's scrutiny and doubts. However, he suddenly became nervous when facing Xianhuan Yu. He was nervous mainly because Xianhuan Yu's identity was too special. He was Yu's father. He had thought about this when he found out about Yu's real identity. Now that they met, he realized that it was more awkward than expected. Chu Ning didn't know what identity he should use to face Xianhuan Yu. However, when Xianhuan Yu heard that, he suddenly took half a step back and bowed deeply to Chu Ning. Chu Ning was shocked and hurriedly said, "No." Xianhuan Yu's status was higher than his, and he was Yu's real father. He really didn't dare to accept this bow. However, Xianhuan Yu was very insistent. He stood up and sincerely said after he finished bowing, "I'm sorry, but I'm sorry, but I'm sorry. Chu Ning, thank you for taking care of previously." He knew that many things had happened to when she was in Yaochen. If not for Chu Ning's protection, would have suffered a lot. When he was lying unconscious in the Tianling Palace, it was Chu Ning who gave a home. His heart was filled with endless gratitude towards Chu Ning. Chu Ning's emotions surged when he heard these words. He didn't expect Xianhuan Yu to think this way. He thought that, "Chu Ning, it's yours blessing to have a father like you." Xianhuan Yu said sincerely. Chu Ning was shocked and suddenly looked up at Xianhuan Yu. What he meant was, seeing Chu Ning's expression, Chu Luiyue seemed to have something surging in her heart and almost drowning her. She held Chu Ning's hand and said, "Father, I've already told Father before that no matter who I am, I'm still your daughter." She had occupied the real Chu Luiyue's body and received the fatherly love that should have belonged to that girl. Therefore she was Chu Ning's daughter. It didn't matter if she was Chu Luiyue or Xianhuan Yu. The porridge that he had cooked for her, the constant concern for her, the courage and determination to protect her time and time again, that was enough. She was father's daughter and Chu Ning's heart seemed to be choked by something. He looked at Chu Luiyue and then at Xianhuan Yu. Their expressions were so sincere that he almost thought he was in a dream. He had once thought that he would lose but in the end, "Father, don't you want anymore?" Chu Luiyue blinked and asked. "How could this be?" Chu Ning hurriedly denied. "As long as wants it, Father will always be by your side." As he said this, the weight in Chu Ning's chest suddenly dissipated. In an instant, he felt as if his entire body was smooth and comfortable. This was how it should be. No matter what, he would still love dearly in the future. Seeing that Chu Ning was truly relieved, Chu Luiyue also felt much more at ease. To be able to receive two sets of fatherly love was her luck and blessing. Rong Xiao watched from the side and a smile appeared on his handsome face. Since she was happy, he was happy too. Although there were many twists and turns in the middle, everything was finally perfect now. He could see that she was really happy. After they exchanged a few more pleasantries, Rong Xiao said, "Now that the dust has settled and all the elders are here, let's start preparing for the wedding." All the revered elders had already guessed his plan, so when they heard this, they weren't too surprised and all agreed. In fact, Rong Xiao had already sent people to prepare for this matter long ago, so even if the notice was rather sudden, Yuntian Tower could still arrange everything in an extremely short time. Rong Xiao gave a few more instructions no matter how big or small. 36 Revered Elder Ming asked, "Your Highness, the people to be invited for the wedding." Rong Xiao handed over a list of names. "The list of people to be invited is here. Just go and invite them according to this. The invitations are with Yanqing. Let him distribute them later." 36 Revered Elder Ming's mouth twitched unnoticeably. Logically speaking, the guest list should be discussed and decided by the revered elders of the clan, but His Highness had already written it down. He really didn't want to wait for even a moment. 36 revered elder Ming thought as he opened the list. After taking a few glances, he suddenly opened his eyes wide and looked at Rong Xiao in shock. Your Highness, this? Everyone looked over curiously. What was so special about the list to make 36 revered elder Ming, who was always calm, react so intensely? Sensing those gazes, 36 revered elder Ming swallowed his saliva and tried his best to ask tactfully, Your Highness, this list, isn't it a little too many? His Highness really didn't make up this list randomly? Putting aside those clans and sects that were on good terms with Yuntian Tower, there were also some that weren't on good terms with them, and even some that had quarreled with them before. His Highness was planning to invite all the important figures in the entire Divine Ruins world. Rong Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. Too many? I don't think so. A wedding should be lively, shouldn't it? 36 revered elder Ming was speechless. His Highness's words? There doesn't seem to be anything wrong? But the key was that some of the people on the list might not come. If they came, it might be even more troublesome. As if seeing through his thoughts, Rong Xiao's thin lips curled up and he said calmly, I will only hold this wedding once in my life. Naturally, I have to do it well and announce it to the world. He wanted everyone in the Divine Ruins world to know. Was his. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1789. The entire Yuntian Tower became busy. The Holy Sun's wedding was a big event for the entire clan. Everyone was naturally mobilized and did not dare to slack off. During this period of time, Chu Luiyue became the most leisurely person. As the wedding was imminent, she did not stay with Rong Xiao in the sacrificial god hall. Instead, she stayed in Chang'e Mountain, which was beside Duming Peak. There were many courtyards on Chang'e Mountain, and most of them were scattered, so Xuanhuan and the rest stayed there. At the very beginning, Chu Luiyue had even specially picked a suitable time to tell Xuanhuan about everything that had happened. Of course, most of it was good. As for some of the more troublesome parts, most of it was skipped. Anyway, those things were already in the past and there was no point in talking about it. It would only make father sad. Even so, Xuanhuan's heart still ached after hearing it. This made Chu Luiyue even more grateful for her previous choice. On the other hand, Chu Ning had been staying in his room ever since he came to Chang'e Mountain. On one hand, he wanted to let Chu Luiyue and Xuanhuan catch up. On the other hand, he also wanted to concentrate on his cultivation. After coming to the Yuntian Tower, he realized that the strong were indeed respected here. If he stayed as a rank 1 warrior, not only would he be looked down upon, but he would also implicate Yuhe. Therefore he put almost all of his thoughts and energy into this. Fortunately, he had the indestructible divine body now, and his talent had a qualitative leap. In addition, the Yuntian Tower was full of energy which was very beneficial for cultivation. Chu Ning's cultivation speed could be said to be 1,000 miles a day. On the second day he directly broke through to become a rank 2 warrior. On the 5th day he jumped to become a rank 3 warrior. On the 8th day he jumped to become a rank 4 warrior. His physical body was the divine body. When he cultivated, the absorption and digestion of the surrounding energy was no different from a real high god. In this way it was a piece of cake for him to raise his warrior rank. As his strength rapidly increased, Chu Ning's mood became better and better. At this rate, it wouldn't take long for him to complete his breakthrough and become a true high god. Although a high god expert wasn't considered a top cultivator in the Divine Ruins world, it was still a huge improvement for Chu Ning. When he was in Yaochen, he never thought that he would be able to reach the legendary realm one day. And all of this was because he had met you, as long as he could become stronger, he would be able to protect you, in the future. Chu Luiyue also focused on cultivating in his residence. Rong Xiao had long arranged everything for the wedding ceremony, and there was no need for her to interfere in any of the major and minor matters. After asking a few questions, Chu Luiyue found that he was worried for nothing, so he simply and wisely gave up on these questions. Instead, he focused his mind and energy on his own cultivation. Even though there were quite a few accidents and dangers along the way, it was very obvious that Chu Luiyue's abilities had improved in all aspects. Especially in the god-slaying mound, she definitely benefited a lot. In the courtyard, Chu Luiyue sat quietly on a stone bench. She was toying with a stone in her hand. And there were more than a dozen stones scattered around her feet. These stones were the ones she had taken out from the god-slaying mound. They seemed to be scattered on the ground in a disorderly manner, but in fact, Chu Luiyue could clearly feel the power contained in each stone. And, that restless god domain that was about to be unleashed. Dong. A stone rolled to her feet. Chu Liwei looked down and raised her eyebrows. No. There was a boundary outside Chang'e Mountain, and without permission, outsiders couldn't enter or leave at will. But it was always better to be cautious. Every single one of these stones contained a god territory. If she unleashed it, it would definitely cause a big commotion. How would she explain it if it attracted a crowd? Actually, these stones weren't rare at all. They were just some broken tombstones that she had picked up from the god-slaying mound. Thinking of that scene, Chu Liwei couldn't help but shudder and move her feet away. The origin force here is rich. It's enough for you to replenish your energy. Don't cause trouble. She had already discovered that these stones could devour the origin force around them and convert it into her own power, making her god territory stronger. But it was a little slow. In fact, these stones were already very efficient at absorbing energy. They could almost compete with cultivators with Daijingyuan meridians. Chu Liwei thought it was slow because she was too fast. Hearing her words, the stones finally quieted down. Chu Liwei looked at them for a while, then threw out some more. Some of them rolled directly into the bushes in the distance or down the stairs. If one didn't look carefully, one wouldn't notice anything wrong with these stones. A subtle fluctuation came from afar. Chu Liwei put down the stone in her hand and looked up. Was Yuemo. He walked over quickly and stood in front of Chu Liwei. Greetings, Your Highness. Chu Liwei glanced at him. Yuemo, why are you so happy? She couldn't hide the smile on her face. Yuemo chuckled. Your Highness, Miss Mu Hongyu is here. Chu Liwei's eyes lit up. Then he heard a familiar clear voice. Lu Yu. Chu Liwei looked up slightly and indeed saw a figure heading toward her at high speed. Her almond-shaped eyes were bright, and her willowy eyebrows were raised. Who else could it be but Mu Hongyu? Chu Liwei stood up and went to welcome her. Hongyu, why are you only here now? Father was far away in Tianling, and he had been here for a few days. Mu Hongyu was at Lingxiao College, so she should have arrived earlier. She didn't know why she was delayed until now. Mu Hongyu cupped her hands pitifully. I was delayed by something at the last minute. Lu Yu, you won't blame me, right? Chu Liwei raised her chin. Tell me first. What was delayed? At the mention of this, Mu Hongyu's face fell. Actually, it's nothing. I've been busy breaking through recently. Chu Liwei. This is your reason? Mu Hongyu coughed. Actually, it's not completely like that. It's just that some things have happened in the academy recently. Chu Liwei narrowed her eyes. She felt that something was wrong. Mu Hongyu had always been passionate and enthusiastic about cultivation. Her aura had indeed strengthened. She must have succeeded in her death. If that was the case, why did she have such an expression? What happened in the academy? She had been very busy recently, so she didn't know much about the situation in the academy. Mu Hongyu hesitated for a while and stood up anxiously. It's actually not a big deal. It's just that Jian Fengqi also came to the academy. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1790. Chu Liwei froze for a moment. Who are you talking about? Jian Fengqi. Mu Hongyu rubbed her temples with a headache. I don't know how he got to Fangzhou City and got into the Lingxiao Academy. It happened a few days ago. Chu Liwei came back to her senses. She was also quite shocked by this matter. He took the Celestial Physician's exam? Mu Hongyu nodded. Chu Liwei nodded in understanding. Jian Fengqi was indeed very talented in this area. Even compared to her, he was not much worse. It was normal for him to be able to get into Lingxiao College. This is a good thing. Jian Fengqi had helped her a lot in the past. Now that he was able to enter Lingxiao College to cultivate, his future would be limitless. No matter how she thought about it, this was something to be happy about. But why did Mu Hongyu look a little upset? Mu Hongyu rubbed her face in confusion. This is a good thing for him, but for me, Mu Hongyu was a little hesitant to say something. Chu Liwei asked again. Did Jian Fengqi make things difficult for you? It didn't seem very likely. Jian Fengqi was quite good to them back then. No, but Mu Hongyu's face turned slightly red. Chu Liwei was very perceptive and quickly guessed something. If I remember correctly, he seems to have your indenture contract from back then? Mu Hongyu saw that she guessed correctly and didn't hesitate anymore. Yes. He has been making trouble for me with this matter. Trouble? Chu Liwei was stunned for a moment, then quickly understood, and her expression became a little strange. Mu Hongyu was even more embarrassed under her gaze. Liu, help me think of a way. Chu Liwei paused for a moment. Then what did he say and do? Mu Hongyu choked. Just say that I ran away. He wasn't happy. He even said, she bit her lip. Chu Luiyue had already guessed the gist of it. He couldn't help but shake his head and smile. Mu Hongyu was stunned. Luyu, what are you laughing at? Chu Luiyue tapped her forehead. I'm laughing at your stupidity. Jian Fengqi was so pitiful. Hongyu, don't tell me you only found out now that Jian Fengqi likes you? Mu Hongyu was stunned, but her face turned even redder. After a while, she said in a flustered and helpless manner, I don't know. Seeing her reaction, Chu Luiyue silently shed tears of sympathy for Jian Fengqi. Mu Hongyu had a straightforward personality and was intelligent and quick-witted. However, when it came to matters of the heart, she was obviously stubborn. If Jian Fengqi wasn't interested in her, he wouldn't have spent so much money to redeem her, and he wouldn't have helped her time and time again. Chu Luiyue didn't notice it at first, but now that he thought about it, he immediately realized something. Even he could tell that Mu Hongyu, the person involved, was extremely muddle-headed. Not only did she not understand the other party's feelings at all, she even said that he was looking for trouble. TSK. He really didn't know what Jian Fengqi had been through. Where is he now? Chu Luiyue asked. Mu Hongyu replied, at the academy? He should have followed you here. Why is he still at the academy? Mu Hongyu shrunk her neck. Her voice suddenly weakened, revealing a sense of guilt. He's injured, Chu Luiyue facepalmed. Needless to say, it had to have something to do with Mu Hongyu. Hongyu, you know better than anyone how Jian Fengqi treats you. Don't you like him? Mu Hongyu was stunned. She immediately lowered her eyes, revealing a trace of confusion on her face. I don't know. She had never thought about this before. Therefore, when Jian Fengqi spoke to her directly, she was stunned. Chu Luiyue's question made her remember to ask herself this question. What was she thinking? Chu Luiyue pondered for a moment and decided to let them deal with it themselves. After all, outsiders couldn't be sure about matters of the heart. Stay in Yuntian Tower for the time being. Calm down and think about what happened between the two of you. It won't be too late for you to go back after our wedding. It's a pity that we can't invite Jian Fengqi over. Mu Hongyu nodded, but was quickly distracted by Chu Luiyue's words. Alright, Ayu. Your wedding with His Highness this time, is it very grand? When I came just now, I saw that many places were already decorated. It's so beautiful. No. The word beautiful was too superficial. It should be said that it was magnificent and shocking. Even if she only took a quick glance when she passed by, she still felt her heart skip a beat. This kind of extravagance was simply shocking. Chu Luiyue's lips curved slightly. Actually, she only took a few glances at the beginning, but she didn't look at it after that. She knew very well that Rong Xiu had been planning this for a few years. It was absolutely extraordinary. But now it seemed that it was more impressive than expected. His Highness's extravagance is indeed extraordinary, Mu Hongyu murmured. Then she suddenly realized something and stared at Chu Luiyue in surprise. Luyu, I haven't seen you for a while. Your strength has increased again? Chu Luiyue nodded. Although she was wearing a divine artifact to hide her aura, others could still feel it. Something happened recently, Chu Luiyue said, and then changed the topic. By the way, Debao, before she could finish her sentence, another figure flew over. It was Yanqing. Greetings, Princess. Yanqing bowed respectfully, but there was something wrong with her expression. Princess, something happened over there. I'm afraid I have to ask you to go over. Chu Luiyue was a little surprised. What's wrong? Yanqing looked at her. The 13U guards are blocked outside the barrier. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 1791. The 13U guard is here too? Chu Luiyue was delighted at first, but then she frowned. Where were they stopped? Do you know the reason? Yanqing said, Princess, only 6 people from the 13U guard came this time. One of them had a suspicious dangerous item on him, which caused a disturbance in the barrier. He refused to hand over the item, so he was stopped outside the barrier. Yanqing was also surprised when she heard about this. Then she immediately reported to Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue's thoughts raced as she walked forward. Take me to see. Mu Hongyu hurriedly followed him. Luyu, I'll go too. The Yuntian Tower was vast, and the barrier used to defend against enemies was also very large. Correspondingly, they were very strict about guarding the barrier. Chu Luiyue and the others attracted a lot of attention when they went to the barrier. There were not many people who could travel freely in the entire world of God, and Chu Luiyue was particularly eye-catching. Many people only took a glance from afar and knew it was her. What is Wang Fei going to do? I don't know. It looks like she's going to the barrier. Hasn't the princess been staying at Chang'e Mountain all this time? Why is she suddenly going to the barrier? Hey, haven't you heard? The princess's former subordinates were stopped outside the barrier for some reason. Now both sides are in a stalemate. The princess consort is most likely going to settle this matter. I see. But they are just a few subordinates. Why did they come? They're here because His Highness, the Chosen One, invited them. What's there to guess? No, I mean it's normal for His Highness the Saint and the Princess to invite the princess's elders and friends to their wedding. But they even invited their subordinates. It's really, all in all, it made people feel a little strange. Moreover, these so-called subordinates caused trouble as soon as they arrived. They didn't seem to be easy to deal with. Someone laughed. Princess Consort isn't from the Divine Ruins world. Now that she's getting married, it's normal for His Highness Holy Son to invite more people to join in the fun. There was even a hint of mockery in his words. To put it nicely, it was lively, but to put it bluntly, it was just a show of courage. The wedding is just around the corner. If those so-called subordinates really cause any trouble, they can't blame us. Chu Luiyue didn't care about that. She sped along and soon arrived at her destination. From afar she saw Cin Yi and the others. At this time they were standing outside the barrier and several Yuntian tower guards were blocking their way. Both sides seemed to have entered a stalemate. Since you are the princess consort subordinates, we don't want to make things difficult for you. As long as you hand over that thing we can immediately let you in. One of the guards frowned. It's just a waste of time for us to continue this confrontation. Cin Yi looked at the woman behind him. Little Hachi? The woman looked to be around 17 or 18 years old. She had a gorgeous appearance and exquisite facial features. Especially her pair of eyes that were suffused with a coquettish aura and could practically suck out one's soul. She could be said to be peerless. She was wearing a colorful dress, revealing her slender and fair arms as well as her calves. It was very eye-catching. Her wrists and ankles were wrapped with colorful ropes, which were decorated with broken jade beads. Every time she moved, her body would jingle. Her long black hair was tied up simply with a colored string, and it extended all the way to her ankles. Regardless of her appearance, just her outfit alone would attract attention wherever she went. She was Little Hachi of the 13U Guard. She didn't have a name, so everyone called her that. When Little Hachi heard this, she pursed her red lips in dissatisfaction. Big brother, I was planning to take that thing out after seeing Master. If I take it out now, it'll be a waste. Cin Yi's long and indifferent eyes narrowed slightly, but he didn't say anything else. He understood Little Hachi's personality very well. No one could force her to do something she didn't want to do. She definitely had her own reasons for being so insistent. After thinking for a moment, Cin Yi asked, "Since you're worried, why don't you just send someone to follow us in? If anything happens, we'll take responsibility for it." The expressions of the guards turned even colder. Impossible. The barrier's reaction was so strong. How could they let them in so easily? If something really happened, they wouldn't be able to escape responsibility either. Cin Yi slowly clenched his fists in his sleeves. At this moment he was the first to sense Chu Luiyue's movements. He turned his gaze and looked over. "Master is here," he said indifferently. The remaining guards came back to their senses and hurriedly followed his gaze. Little Hachi also opened her beautiful eyes wide and kept looking around. Where? She quickly saw Chu Luiyue. A smile appeared on that beautiful and delicate face, instantly causing the surrounding world to lose its color. In that instant, the surrounding scenery seemed to have lost its color, leaving only her. Flirtatious and gorgeous, her beauty unparalleled. "Master." Little Hachi waved at Chu Luiyue, her figure swaying. Her pair of beautiful eyes seemed to be able to devour a person's soul. That smile of hers was truly charming. Even the guards who had been cold and stern earlier couldn't help but stare blankly at this moment. Little Hachi turned a deaf ear to them and only cared about her master. "Master. Little Hachi missed you so much after not seeing you for so long." Chu Luiyue facepalmed. She knew that the one causing trouble was definitely her. "Greetings, Princess Consort." The few guards reacted and immediately saluted. Chu Luiyue indicated for them to dispense with the formalities. "I'll handle it." As she spoke, she looked at Little Eight. "Speak, what did you bring me?" She actually caused such trouble because of this. Little Hachi's red lips curled slightly and immediately revealed a smug smile. "Of course it's a good treasure. Master will definitely like it." She clasped her hands together and shook them lightly. The broken jade beads on her wrist jingled, crisp and pleasant to the ear. Then a wooden box suddenly appeared. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1792. The wooden box was about the size of a palm and was completely black. Only the edges were suffused with a faint silver. Especially at the 8 corners, there was a special pattern of flowers and vines. At a glance, it was luxurious and exquisite. Little Hachi handed the wooden box over and raised her eyebrows. Master, quickly open it and take a look. There's really good stuff inside. Chu Luiyue curiously took the wooden box. Little Hachi was very talented as a celestial physician. She especially liked to study strange prescriptions. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to help Qihan refine a pill that could change his aura. For her to hand it over like a treasure, it must be something extraordinary. Suddenly, Chu Luiyue's eyes narrowed. Only then did she see that the flower vines on the wooden box were undergoing subtle changes. The vines and leaves moved silently as if they were being blown by the wind. During this process, what was even more shocking was that the wooden box was actually starting to melt bit by bit. Like an ice cube that would gradually melt under the scorching sun, the wooden box started to shrink at a speed visible to the naked eye after little Hachi took it out. However, no water dripped from it. It was as if it had mysteriously evaporated and disappeared. She looked at little Hachi suspiciously. Little Hachi hurriedly said, "Xianxia, I already said that this thing can't be taken out casually. If the box is gone, the thing inside will be ruined." As she spoke, she urged Chu Luiyue to open it. The wooden box wasn't locked. Chu Luiyue moved her fingers and opened it. A red elixir the size of a longan fruit was lying quietly inside. The pill's color was pure and rich, and it emitted a faint medicinal fragrance. However, there were no markings on the pill that represented its grade. There was only a small flower vine leaf pattern. It was exactly the same as the one on the wooden box. Chu Luiyue was stunned at first. Then she suddenly realized something and looked at little Hachi in shock. "This is, Master, it wasn't easy for me to refine this. It must have been hard on you to bring it all the way here." Little Hachi looked at her and saw the crux of the matter. She blinked and a pair of soft and boneless hands climbed onto Chu Luiyue's arm. She leaned against her and said in a gentle voice, "Master, how do you plan to reward little Hachi?" Chu Luiyue's eyelids twitched. Little 8 was a natural demon. Her eyes were filled with a myriad of emotions. No matter where she went, she was the most eye-catching. Over the years, she had been seducing her, but she didn't give them a second glance. On the other hand, every time she met Chu Luiyue, she would always stick to Chu Luiyue seductively. After all, they hadn't seen each other for a few years. Chu Luiyue almost couldn't take it when this happened so suddenly. Cough. Of course, Chu Luiyue, Ling Shao Academy's herb garden is for you to use for 1 month. Really? Little Hachi's eyes lit up and she was overjoyed. "Master, you're the best to me." She had been coveting that herb garden for a long time. It was a pity that her master had always valued that herb garden and was reluctant to let her use it. This time it was finally a success. Seeing little Hachi sticking to Chu Luiyue and acting coquettishly, Yanqing couldn't help but frown. Why was this woman like this? Chu Luiyue took out the pill and was about to swallow it. Yanqing tried to dissuade her. "Princess consort, this pill? What if there was a problem?" Chu Luiyue smiled and said, "Little Hachi is mine. Don't worry." Little Hachi glared at Yanqing. "This pill was specially refined by me to help Master refine his divine body. You don't know anything. Why are you here to cause trouble?" Yanqing glanced at little Hachi indifferently. His face was still expressionless, as if he didn't care about what she was saying at all. Since the princess consort said that she was trustworthy, then there shouldn't be a problem. It wasn't appropriate for him to continue speaking. But the princess consort subordinates were all rather special. Yanqing's eyes swept across Cun Yi and the rest without batting an eyelid, but he quickly retracted his gaze. Seeing that Yanqing actually didn't care about her, little Hachi was instantly enraged. "You." Chu Luiyue pressed her hand. She knew that Yanqing had always been like this. It wasn't that he was targeting little Hachi. Little Hachi could only suppress the anger in her heart and snort. "What do you people know? If Master uses this pill of mine, he will refine his divine body in less than a year." As soon as he said this, the guards secretly looked at each other and revealed a tacit smile. This woman was so boastful. It was a pity that she wasn't that smart. There were many high god experts in the Divine Ruins world, and there were also many pills that could help one break through to the high god level. But they had never heard of a pill in this world that could guarantee that one could refine their divine body in less than a year after using it. This woman was too good at bragging. Chu Yue's gaze quickly swept across the few of them, and she easily guessed their thoughts. The corners of her lips curled up slightly as she chuckled softly and looked away. At this moment, the wooden box in her hand had completely dissipated. Since the item has been verified and I have used it, can you let them in now? The guards hurriedly bowed. Yes. Princess consort, please. Everyone, please. No matter what, they had to give face to the princess consort. Chu Liyue nodded at Sun Yi and the rest. This time they entered in a single file, and the barrier didn't produce any abnormal fluctuations. Chu Liyue's gaze swept across them and smiled. Since you're here, follow me to Changi Mountain first. I haven't seen you for a while, so let's have a good chat. With that, she turned and walked in the direction of Changi Mountain. The others followed closely behind. It was only when their figures gradually disappeared into the distance that the guards finally relaxed. That girl called Little 8 just now was really arrogant and unbridled. She was full of nonsense. How could there be such a pill in this world? Didn't she do her homework before spouting nonsense? Saying it out loud would be a joke for no reason. I heard that they are the same as the princess consort, also from the Tianling dynasty. They probably think that we are as ignorant as the ordinary people from their place, right? So they are from outside the divine ruins world. No wonder. I really don't know how the princess consort chooses people to take in such people as her subordinates. Didn't you see the youngest youth over there? He looks to be only 13 or 14 years old. He's just a teenager. What can he do? I'm guessing that the princess consort chose these people for fun. I hope they don't cause any trouble. However, this seems to be a little difficult. They haven't even entered yet, but they've already caused a ruckus. Who knows what those people will do in the future? The guards shook their heads in disapproval. The princess consort is very outstanding. This is indisputable. It's a pity that there are too many people dragging her down. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1793. Yan Qing escorted Chu Liyue and the others to Changi Mountain before bidding farewell and leaving with Umo. The princess consort and her subordinates would definitely have a lot to talk about. It was naturally inappropriate for outsiders to be present. Little Hachi pursed her red lips as she watched Yan Qing and Umo's departing figures. He ran fast. If not for her master's sake, she would have already made a move just now. Chu Liyue smiled as she brought the few of them back to her yard. Yan Qing and Umo are both nice people. He said that just now because he was concerned about my safety. Little Hachi, don't take it to heart. Who would care about that ice-cold face? Little Hachi rolled her eyes, her face full of disdain. Hypocrite. This was the kind of person she hated the most. Chu Liyue glanced at her and knew that she was still dissatisfied with Yan Qing. He chuckled softly and didn't continue to persuade her. Little Hachi might have a strange temper, but she was extremely smart. Now that they were in Yuntian Tower's territory, she wouldn't really get into a fight with them. Chu Liyue pushed open the door and entered, but Mu Hongyu stopped at the door. Liu, why don't you guys talk first? I won't disturb you. She could tell that these people followed Lu Yu's lead blindly. They had traveled thousands of miles to come here, so they definitely had a lot to talk about between master and servant. Chu Liyue thought about it and didn't continue to keep her. He nodded. All right. Mu Hongyu sized them up curiously one last time, then quietly closed the door and left alone. Only Chu Liyue, Sun Yi, and the others were left in the room. Greetings, master. They bowed in unison. Chu Liyue chuckled and said, It's been a long time. It's been a long time since we last met. You must have had a hard time coming here this time. There's no need to stand on ceremony. Little Hachi walked over with seductive steps. Master still loves us dearly. Chu Liyue raised his eyebrows and glanced at her. There are no outsiders here. Stand properly. Little Hachi pouted and stomped her feet like a spoiled child. Master is about to get married, so he doesn't care about Little Hachi anymore. Chu Liyue helplessly held his forehead. She really didn't know what to do with Little Hachi. Sun Yi glanced indifferently at Little Hachi. Little Hachi suddenly became alert. She snorted but still stood there obediently. In this world, only Sun Yi could subdue her. It wasn't because of anything else. It was because Sun Yi was much stronger than her. Furthermore, he attacked without mercy. Even Chu Liyue's heart couldn't help but soften when faced with such a beautiful face. However, Sun Yi would never be like that. If he said that he would dislocate little Hachi's left arm, it definitely wouldn't be her right arm that would be dislocated. Hence, little Hachi was still a little respectful towards Tsinyi. Chu Luiyue scanned the surroundings. This time there were a total of 6 people including Tsinyi and little Hachi. Other than the 2 of them, Wu Yao, Yu Jiu and Shifang were all here. There was also little 13. Chu Luiyue smiled and waved at little 13. 13, come over quickly. Haven't you grown taller recently? Little 13 had been obediently following behind everyone. When he heard Chu Luiyue call him, he immediately became happy. The youth's eyes were bright and his appearance was delicate. His body, which was growing, seemed a little thin. There was still a hint of immaturity in his eyes, but there was also a hint of calmness that hadn't been there before. It was a sign that he was gradually growing up. Chu Luiyue stood up. When little 13 walked in front of her, she realized that he was already slightly taller than her. She was stunned for a moment before she couldn't help but laugh. 13 has really grown up. 13's ears were slightly red, but his expression was very happy. In the past, everyone treated him like a child, but now he could clearly feel that everyone's attitude towards him had changed. In short, he was very happy. Growing up and becoming stronger meant that he could help master in the future. Chu Luiyue patted 13's shoulder lightly, then looked at everyone. Apart from Tsinyi, she really hadn't seen these people in a long time. How have you guys been? They all nodded. Tsinyi, I've been reading recently. Very good. Wu Yao, I've been practicing boxing recently. Very good. Yu Jiu, I've been practicing swords recently. Very good. I've been farming recently. Very good. Chu Luiyue, seeing her speechless expression, 13 hurriedly raised his hand. I've been running recently. Very good. Chu Luiyue looked at him with gratification. During puberty you should run more and exercise your body. 13 was very happy to be praised. A shy and bright smile bloomed on his delicate face. Master, you haven't praised 13 in a long time. Last time you said that 13 cooked well and praised 13 for eating a lot. Chu Luiyue. Oh, is that so? She coughed. It had been a long time since she last saw them, but these people were busy with their own things as usual. Where are the others? Tsinyi. Previously, His Highness the Holy Sun sent a message to Tianling. After knowing that you were going to marry the Holy Sun, I immediately informed the 13U tribe. However, time was a little tight, so only the few of us rushed over. The others were further away, so they couldn't come together. In addition, For Wells and the others were stationed in Tianling. We had to leave someone there. Chu Luiyue nodded slightly. I'm already very surprised that the few of you can come. Ever since her accident, the 13U tribe had left Tianling and scattered. After such a long time, there hadn't been a chance to gather them back. Now that 6 of them had come, it was indeed quite good. Tsinyi looked at her and asked, Master, have you regained your memories? Chu Luiyue nodded. Since she had broken through to become a supreme god again and summoned back the divine realm, she had naturally regained her memories. Tsinyi nodded. In fact, they had already guessed this before, but this was a serious matter, so they still had to confirm it before they could truly be at ease. Chu Luiyue asked them a few more questions and everyone answered them one by one. She also briefly told them about some of the things that had happened recently. Wu Yao looked ashamed. I didn't expect Master to have suffered so much here. It's all our fault for coming too late. Chu Luiyue smiled nonchalantly. Misfortune is a blessing in disguise. Although there were some twists and turns in the middle, fortunately, everything was daunting but not dangerous. Moreover, I gained more than I lost. Overall, it was actually a good thing. 13 clenched his fists. Master, then after this we won't go back. We'll stay in the Divine Ruins world with you. We'll protect you well. Tsinyi's expression changed slightly when he heard this, and he looked at Chu Luiyue. Master, what do you plan to do after this? Chu Luiyue knew what he was asking. She paused but didn't immediately answer this question. Instead, her lips curled up in a smile. I have a friend who has been researching how to build a teleportation formation. If you have time, go and teach him. Tsinyi nodded. Yes. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1794. Chu Luiyue asked with a smile. You didn't even ask who he was and agreed to it directly? Tsinyi nodded. Since he's your friend, there's naturally no problem. There weren't many people who could make her truly recognize this person as a friend. Chu Luiyue smiled helplessly and shook her head. Tsinyi was too smart and sometimes she seemed a little boring. The friend she was referring to was naturally Lin Qifei. He didn't come this time, but she had already asked Mu Hongyu previously. Recently, Lin Qifei had been busy with the teleportation array in the academy just like before. According to Mu Hongyu, Lin Qifei's strength had increased greatly recently, and the teleportation array was already built. Some of the elders in the academy knew about it and were full of praise for him. However, they all thought that Lin Qifei was so diligent in studying the teleportation array because he was interested in it. But in reality, everything was because of a promise between him and Chu Luiyue. It seemed that things were progressing well. It's only a few days until the wedding. During this time you can stay at Chang'e Mountain. I've already ordered people to tidy it up for you. If there's anything, just look for me directly. Little Hachi blinked her seductive eyes and moved closer to Chu Luiyue with a smile. Master, I've only heard of this Yuntian Tower before, but I've never been here. I wonder, as long as you don't cause trouble, you can stroll around here as you wish. Chu Luiyue immediately guessed what she was thinking and directly gave her an answer. Little Hachi's smile grew even wider. I knew Master was the best. Have you heard? A few of the princess consort's subordinates from the Tianling dynasty are also here. Just now there seemed to be an argument at the barrier. This news has already spread throughout the Yuntian Tower. Who doesn't know? Didn't you say that it was because one of the women had something on her that caused the barrier to react abnormally and stop them? Hey, that's what I want to say. Do you know what it is that woman is unwilling to hand over? What? Pills. She also said that as long as the princess consort uses that pill, she'll definitely be able to temper her divine body within a year. What? There's such a pill in the world? Why don't we know about it? She's probably just trying to put up a front. After all, she's from outside the Divine Ruins world. On a mountain peak not far from Duming Peak, a few people were walking up while talking about something. Although the Yuntian Tower was vast, the news spread among the clan members was fast. Not long after the incident happened over there, many people knew it. They had nothing to say about Chu Luiyue. Her talent was extraordinary, her strength was also strong, and her appearance was one in a million, a beauty that could topple cities. His only shortcoming was his family background. Actually, I feel that the princess consort is not without a backer. Senior Shengguan Jing's name was resounding back then. Even now, a venerable blacksmith is very rare and honorable in the entire Divine Ruins world. Moreover, the princess consort is the direct disciple of the dean of Lingxiao College. She's also very powerful. Someone had a different opinion and refuted in a low voice. That's right, but think about it carefully. Senior Shengguan Jing is weak and Dean Nan. His words and actions represent the entire Lingxiao College. He would never ignore the entire college for the sake of the princess consort. In short, the princess consort has to take care of herself if she's in trouble. That's true. I heard that the princess consort's relatives, friends and subordinates are not very strong. Let's not talk about Mu Hongyu from Lingxiao College. Although she's strong, she doesn't have any background. As for the princess consort's father, he's only a stage 1 warrior. What's there to hope for? Although the words were unpleasant, they were all true. How could it be so easy to establish a foothold in the Divine Ruins world? At this moment, a snow-white and muscular figure suddenly flew out from the bushes and pounced on them. The man standing at the front who was talking was shocked and hurriedly retreated. However, he was fast, but the other party was faster. He only saw a blur in front of his eyes, and a white shadow flashed past. Then his body flew out uncontrollably. Bang! There was a muffled sound. A few sharp scratches appeared on his chest, and his flesh and blood rolled. The intense pain caused his face to turn pale. The remaining people were shocked and were about to attack, but they were stunned when they saw the other party. It was a white lion. Its fur was snow-white, and its ice-blue eyes were indifferent and cold. At this moment, it was staring intently at the few of them. It lowered its body slightly as if it was ready to attack at any time. A strong murderous intent spread from its body. The remaining people's faces also turned pale. This was the Holy Sun's magical beast. How could they attack? Moreover, they were no match for it. Its cold gaze landed on the man who was covered in wounds on the ground, causing him to shiver. He swallowed the rest of his words and did not dare to make a sound. The air seemed to have stopped flowing and froze inch by inch. The few of them tensed up. After a while, one of them forced himself to speak. Lord Shui, we didn't mean what we said just now. Shui narrowed its eyes. Didn't mean it? Did they think it was stupid? A low roar came from Shui's throat, and then it suddenly raised its claws. Since they didn't mean it, then, it would also do it a few times unintentionally. Mobile users, Please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1795. Taking care of these people was a piece of cake for Xuanhuan. After a series of white flashes, the people present were all injured to varying degrees. Seeing that Xuanhuan was about to continue, one of them quickly shouted, "Lord Xuanhuan, His Highness the Saint and the Princess Consort's wedding is imminent. It's really inappropriate if someone dies." Only then did Xuanhuan stop. It tilted its head and pondered for a moment, as if it was considering this person's words. The few of them held their breaths nervously and did not dare to move. They did not even dare to utter a single word. Every second that Xuanhuan was thinking was torture to them. Finally Xuanhuan turned around and left. It was indeed inappropriate to delay Master's wedding because of these few people. Seeing that it had finally decided to leave, the few of them looked relieved that they had survived a disaster. However, after taking a few steps, Xuanhuan turned around again. Its cold and indifferent eyes swept across their faces as if it wanted to remember their faces clearly. Everyone understood the meaning in its eyes. It was waiting to settle the score with them. After taking a look, Xuanhuan left in a flash. The snow-white figure flashed before their eyes and soon disappeared. However, the hearts of the few people who stayed on the spot sank. Offending this person would not end well for you either. If they had known that Lord Xuanhuan was so protective of the princess consort and happened to be here, they would not have said that even if they were beaten to death. The few of them clutched their wounds and regretted it. Lord Xuanhuan is a vengeful person. This time, I'm afraid it's over. One of them said regretfully. The other people's faces were deathly pale. As for the man who was attacked first, when he thought of what would happen to him, he was so angry that he fainted. However, there was no medicine for regret in this world. Everyone had to pay the price for their words and actions. Chu Luiyue was cultivating in her room. Suddenly a wave came. She opened her eyes and looked at the window. A big furry head poked in through the window. Because the body was too big and the window was too small, it was stuck. A pair of ice-blue eyes looked at Chu Luiyue innocently and pitifully. Roar! Chu Luiyue immediately got up and walked over, feeling helpless and amused. Xuanhuan, why did he have to come in through the window every time? This small window can't accommodate your big body. As she spoke, she walked to the window and opened it even wider. Only then did she finally let Xuanhuan in. All right, you. Before he could finish his sentence, the liberated Xuanhuan immediately pounced on him. He hadn't seen it for a while and it had grown a lot bigger and heavier. This time, Chu Luiyue almost couldn't catch it. Fortunately, her strength had increased by quite a bit and she barely managed to scoop Xuanhuan up. A ball of furry fur reported to her. Chu Luiyue let out a long sigh. Phew. Xuanhuan, why are you so much heavier than before? Is it because you've been eating and sleeping well in the Yuntian Tower that you've put on weight? Chu Luiyue was originally teasing, but after saying that, she realized that Xuanhuan's condition seemed a little off. It didn't say anything and just leaned against her leg. Xuanhuan. Chu Luiyue looked down and saw Xuanhuan's expression. It didn't seem very happy. Sensing her gaze, Xuanhuan looked up. There was a faint light in its ice-blue eyes, and it seemed to be very wronged. She was slightly stunned. Strange, Xuanhuan was happy every time it saw her. This had never happened before. What's wrong with our Xuanhuan? Who bullied you? Chu Luiyue rubbed Xuanhuan's head. This was the Yuntian Tower. Even if there was bullying, it should be Xuanhuan bullying others, right? Why was it so wronged? Chu Luiyue bent down and smelled an extremely faint smell of blood. Her expression changed slightly as she grabbed Xuanhuan's claws. Only then did she see that there were fresh blood stains on its sharp nails. Oh, who did you fight with? Chu Luiyue frowned. To be able to make Xuanhuan choose to fight in the Yuntian Tower? Just as she was filled with worry, Xuanhuan suddenly leaned its head over. Chu Luiyue was stunned. Xuanhuan. Xuanhuan didn't say anything. It only rubbed its big head carefully and clumsily against her shoulder. Woo, it seemed to be comforting her? It's angry. Dumpling's voice suddenly sounded in her heart. It heard someone talking bad about Ayu just now, so it fought with them. Chu Luiyue suddenly understood. Her heart seemed to have been hit by something soft. Xuanhuan was protecting her. She smiled and hugged Xuanhuan's head. Xuanhuan, why lower yourself to the level of those people? Xuanhuan let out a low sound. Of course it was angry. Those people actually dared to talk about her like that. If it wasn't for the fact that it didn't want to delay the wedding, it wouldn't have let them off so easily. It would definitely take revenge in the future. Chu Luiyue rubbed Xuanhuan's head. Her eyes were slightly lowered, but she was thinking about something. Dumpling asked. Look, I told you those people don't know how to restrain themselves. They will only be obedient after being beaten up. Ayu was right, but when would she be willing to make a move? She was really itching to do it now. Chu Liwei was silent for a moment before she suddenly laughed. There are still 5 or 6 days before the wedding. Let them make a fuss one last time. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1796. Chu Liwei comforted Xue for a while and carefully wiped the blood off its claws. She also promised that she would definitely get back at it in the future. Only then did Xue become happy again and run around her. It had indeed been staying in the Yuntian Tower to cultivate during this period of time. It was not allowed to come out if it did not meet its master's requirements. Therefore, Chu Liwei had been here for a long time before it was finally free. After throwing those messy things to the back of its mind, Xue became lively again. Chu Liwei simply brought it to the courtyard to play. This courtyard was not big, but to Xue, as long as it was with Chu Liwei, it was always interesting. Seeing that there were many stones in the courtyard, it rushed over curiously and used its claws to fiddle with them. Dong. A stone next to it rolled down and landed on its hind legs. Xue looked back with a blank expression. It did not move this stone. Why did it move by itself? It used its hind leg to push the stone away. In the end, a third stone rolled over. This time, the strength seemed to be a little stronger than before. Xue was a little impatient. It waved its claws and kicked the stone away. However, in the next moment, the stone actually returned. It was heading straight for Xue's face at an even faster speed. The sound of air being torn apart was sharp. Xue was shocked and immediately turned to look. Only then did it see that when the stone flew over, it actually cut through the surrounding space, revealing a black space crack. Danger. Xue immediately became vigilant. Suddenly, a clear and gentle voice sounded. Stop fooling around. It was Chu Liwei. After that, Xue watched with her own eyes as the originally aggressive rock suddenly concealed all of its aura and fell to the ground with a clang. It looked no different from an ordinary stone. Just looking at it like this was really hard to imagine. A second ago it was still full of killing intent, and the pressure from it made it tremble in fear. Xue shook its head and looked again in disbelief. Those few stones had stopped. Everything just now was like an illusion. However, it did not really think that it was all fake. Chu Liwei walked over and grabbed Xue's ear. There aren't many people here. With your appearance, it's inevitable that they'll be a little lively. Xue was confused. Them? Oh. Suddenly its gaze froze. Wait, there aren't only these few stones around? Xue turned her neck stiffly as a trace of shock flashed across her eyes. There seemed to be stones scattered everywhere in the entire courtyard. Moreover, it was very similar to the one that wanted to attack. Xue instantly understood something as it looked up at Chu Liwei. Chu Liwei's lips curled. Xue was smart, she did not intend to hide. If you feel bored, you can ask Tuanzi to practice with you. Xue thought Xue's. Xue's. Recently, she vaguely felt that her body seemed to have changed a little, so she spent most of her time sorting out the meridians in her body. Besides, what was the point of fighting with Xue? Presently, the number one enemy in her heart was Zichen. She could clearly sense that Zichen's strength had now faintly surpassed her own. She had to open her 5th meridian to have a chance of winning. Thinking of this, Tuanzi was full of energy and continued to practice. Chu Liwei did not know whether to laugh or cry. In fact, Dumpling's talent and strength could already be considered the best of the best. After all, in the entire Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan, she was the only one who had opened her 4th meridian at such a young age. Originally, she was sure to win against Zichen. However, Zichen's luck was also heaven-defying. He was connected to Mao Zhen's qi and could be considered a real cheat. Even if he did not cultivate, as Mao Zhen's strength increased, his combat strength would also increase. Even Chu Liwei was envious of this kind of luck. If Dumpling wanted to win against him, it was equivalent to winning against Mao Zhen. It was no wonder that she had been cultivating so diligently recently. By the way, have you told clan leader Yi Zhao and the others about what happened on Divine Dragon Island? Dumpling responded. Yes. She had the inheritance of her ancestors, so she could easily contact Yi Zhao and the others. As soon as they came out of Divine Dragon Island, Chu Liwei reminded her to tell clan leader Yi Zhao and the others about what happened. Dumpling was a Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix and the young master of the clan. It was indeed a big deal for her to go to Divine Dragon Island directly. Instead of hearing random rumors from other places, clan leader Yi Zhao and the others might as well take the initiative to tell them. It would make them feel more at ease. I hope clan leader Yi Zhao and the others won't be angry. Chu Luiyue rubbed the space between his eyebrows. Tuanzi laughed loudly and said in a crisp voice, "You don't worry. Aren't we all fine and dandy? Why would Grandpa clan leader be angry?" Chu Luiyue coughed and thought of Yi Zhao and the others looking at Dumpling with doting eyes. She felt even more guilty. She had promised to take good care of Dumpling before, but after leaving Phoenix Godly Mountain, she had been in constant trouble. First it was the God-slaying tomb, then Divine Dragon Island. Fortunately Dumpling was fine. Otherwise, Chu Luiyue really didn't know how to face clan leader Yi Zhao and the others in the future. When the wedding is over, I'll bring you back to Phoenix Godly Mountain to take a look. Although this trip didn't take too long, many things had happened in between. It was reasonable for him to go back and greet them. It could also be considered as a way of comforting them. Fortunately, the Great Phoenix Dragon Clan's clan leader was Mao Jin now, so she didn't care so much about Dumpling. Otherwise the problem would be more difficult to solve. Okay. Dumpling didn't think too much about it. When she heard that she could go back, she immediately won happily. "You are." A familiar voice sounded. Chu Luiyue looked up. "Master, why are you here?" she asked as she walked over. Nan Suhuai waved his hand. "I have nothing to do, so I wanted to come and see you." Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows. Oh. She knew her master best. Since he was here, there must be a reason. Nan Suhuai felt guilty under her gaze. He coughed a few times and finally gave in. All right. Actually, the reason why Master came over this time is because I have something to ask you." Chu Luiyue invited Nan Suhuai to sit on a stone bench in the courtyard. Then she smiled and asked unhurriedly, "What do you want to ask, Master?" Nan Suhuai hesitated. After a long while, he raised his chin in a certain direction. Those few people, are all your subordinates?" Chu Luiyue knew he was asking about Sun Yi and the others, so she nodded. "That's right." "What? Did they get into trouble?" Nan Suhuai hurriedly waved his hand. "Of course not. They don't know how to cause trouble like you." "No, Master means, those few children don't look old, but their talents are not bad. Especially the youngest one, his physique seems to be quite good. Do you have any intention of letting him go to the academy?" Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1797. Chu Luiyue was stunned. She put down the cup of tea that had just reached her lips. She didn't expect her master to take a fancy to little 13. Her master's eyes were famous for being picky. Otherwise, he wouldn't have only taken her as his disciple after so many years. Being able to catch his eye was enough to prove that little 13 was indeed outstanding. Chu Luiyue thought for a while and didn't immediately agree. She asked, "Why did Master suddenly think of this? Have you already checked little 13's potential?" Nan Suhuai shook his head. "Not yet. It's just that this child has been running all over the mountains these few days. Although he's young and is only a stage 6 warrior, his speed is comparable to a stage 9 warrior. Thinking about it, this child's physique should be pretty good. Originally, I did want to call him over to take a look. But since he's your disciple, I thought of asking for your opinion first." Chu Luiyue's lips curled up slightly. It's little 13's good fortune to be favored by Master. If he can really enter the academy to cultivate, it'll be a good thing for little 13. Please wait for a while, I'll call him over. She stood up and was about to call for him when she suddenly thought of something and asked, "If little 13's conditions are good, does Master plan to take him as your disciple?" Nan Suhuai shook his head. "Of course not. It's enough for me to have you as my disciple. Besides, if he's really as good as I think, there's someone more suitable to be his master in the academy." Chu Luiyue nodded in understanding. "Little 13. She raised her voice slightly and shouted into the distance. Nan Suhuai was a little surprised. That child seems to be halfway up the mountain now. It's so far away he can hear. Before he finished speaking, a thin figure of a young man quickly came from afar. He ran very fast and his movements were light and nimble. In the blink of an eye, he was already in front of Chu Luiyue. Because he ran in a hurry, his forehead and the tip of his nose were covered in crystal-clear beads of sweat. A pair of pure and sincere eyes glowed with the unique youthful vigor of a young man. Chu Luiyue's eyes swayed when she saw him. These few years little 13 had really grown up. In her memory he was still a child. "Master, are you looking for me?" Chu Luiyue came back to his senses and nodded with a smile. "Come here." With that, she returned to Nan Suhuai's side. Master thinks that your talent is not bad and wants to see your aptitude. If you pass, you can go to Lingxiao College to cultivate in the future. Chu Luiyue said concisely. 13 was taken aback. He looked at Nan Suhuai, then at Chu Luiyue. This means, he has been here for several days. Of course he knew who the master was. He had also heard of the other party's identity. He just didn't expect that it would be related to him. When Chu Luiyue saw that he was stunned, he thought that he had startled the child. He laughed again and said, 13, what are you waiting for? Stretch out your hand. 13 obediently stretched out his hand. Nan Suhuai put 2 fingers on 13's wrist. Then he separated a strand of origin power and sent it into 13's yuan meridian. A moment later, a trace of surprise flashed across his eyes. Chu Luiyue asked, Master, how is it? Nan Suhuai didn't answer the question immediately. He just withdrew his hand, stood up, walked to 13's side and squeezed his shoulder. 13 looked at Chu Luiyue helplessly. Chu Luiyue gave him a reassuring look. 13 then continued to sit there quietly, allowing Nan Suhuai to squeeze his shoulder, arm and other bones. After a while, Nan Suhuai stopped. At this moment, the way he looked at 13 was very different from before. Master, how is it? Chu Luiyue felt a little guilty when she saw his reaction. Can 13 enter the Lingxiao College to cultivate? Of course she hoped that 13 could do better. Nan Suhuai paused for a long time before he turned to Chu Luiyue. His expression was serious, but there was a smile in his eyes. If he can't enter the Lingxiao College, then I'm afraid not many people in the world can do it. That means he passed. Chu Luiyue's worried heart suddenly relaxed, and her lips curved up into a bright smile. Really? Can't be more real. Do you think I'll lie to you? Nan Suhuai also smiled. He stroked his beard and said emotionally, I didn't expect you to have such a good seedling by your side. He has the Tianjing Yuan Meridian. And his physique is special. He's a natural martial artist. Chu Luiyue was stunned by Nan Suhuai's words. She didn't know that 13 had such a top talent. She widened her eyes slightly and looked at 13. 13 blinked his eyes. His expression was pure and innocent, and there was a hint of confusion in his eyes. He seemed to be at a loss of what to do with the situation in front of him. Chu Luiyue took a deep breath. 13, why didn't you tell me before? 13 hesitated for a moment and said, I don't know about this. Nan Suhuai asked curiously. You have such a good cultivation talent, but you haven't done any related tests before? 13 shook his head. Chu Luiyue just remembered that 13 really didn't check on this. When she found 13, he was still very young. It was snowing heavily in the imperial capital and it was bone-chilling. He was only wearing a thin layer of clothing and was curled up in a corner, covered in filth. At that time, she just ordered the servants to bring him some food and clothes before leaving. However, after walking for a long distance, she realized that the child had been following her at a distance that was neither too far nor too close. At that time she was very surprised, because her carriage was very fast. Even a real cultivator might not be able to keep up with it, let alone a child. But the child's body was thin and weak, but his footsteps were very fast. He easily kept up with her. Most importantly, he followed them silently as if he was invisible. If she didn't notice that something was wrong and found him later, no one would have noticed his existence. Chu Luiyue felt that this child was very interesting, so she brought him back. Originally she wanted to see what his talent and aptitude was like, but many things happened at the time. She was busy dealing with them and didn't have the time to do this. Instead, she threw him to Tsinyi and asked him to take care of him. Later, when she was free, she thought of 13 and asked Tsinyi about him. Tsinyi said that 13 was quite talented and suggested that Chu Luiyue take him in and let them nurture him well. Chu Luiyue agreed without much hesitation. Since then, 13 became the youngest member of the 13U Guard. Chu Luiyue pursed her lips. Tsinyi should know about 13's situation. Why didn't he say anything? Nan Suhuai stroked his beard and sighed. Even if this child goes to Lingxiao College, he will definitely be one of the best among the geniuses there. Chu Luiyue nodded and was about to speak when 13 took the initiative to speak. Master, can I not go to the college? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1798. The entire courtyard fell silent for a moment. Chu Luiyue was stunned for a while before she understood what 13 meant. He said, he didn't want to go to Lingxiao College? Nan Suhuai was also a little confused. He had never encountered such a situation before. In the world of divine ruins, countless geniuses worked hard to cultivate in the hope of entering Lingxiao College. Many people saw this as the glory of their lives and that of their entire family. It was no exaggeration to say that Lingxiao College was indeed the highest school that all the geniuses in the world flocked to. They had always been the ones to choose people, and they had never been rejected like this. 13. You've just arrived in the world of divine ruins, so you probably don't know what Lingxiao College means. Chu Luiyue sorted out her thoughts and felt that 13 was still a little young and didn't consider things thoroughly. That was why he said such words. She looked at 13 and said seriously, 13, this is an extremely rare opportunity. Many people want to enter the college but don't have the qualifications. She really didn't want 13 to miss this great opportunity. 13 shook his head. Master, I know all this. Before he came, his big brother and the others had already told him a lot about the world of divine ruins. Lingxiao College was the college where his master studied, so of course they had done a lot of research. He really didn't want to go. I know, it's my honor to be appreciated by the dean. But I've gotten used to following Big Brother and the others all these years. I think it's pretty good. 13 paused and took a deep breath as if he had mustered up his courage. I don't want to leave Big Brother and the others, and I don't want to leave you. In another courtyard of Chang'e Mountain, Wu Yao was practicing boxing. Little Hachi was applying nail polish. Yu Jiu was waving a wooden sword. Shi Fang was plowing the ground. A few days ago he had started farming as soon as he arrived. Now fresh and green sprouts had already grown on the ground. It's the most reassuring to eat the vegetables you grow yourself. Shi Fang straightened his back and sighed. He had a bad habit of only eating the vegetables he grew. During this period of time, he had been busy running around and didn't have time to do these. The ones he brought from home were almost finished. It would take another month for the newly planted ones to ripen. Shi Fang could only struggle to get by. But when he saw these fresh shoots, his mood improved a lot. Little Hachi glanced at him. You're even more pretentious than me. According to Shi Fang's present realm, even if he ate one meal a month, it was nothing much. However, he was very stubborn and had to eat it every day. Moreover, if it wasn't planted by him, he would rather starve to death than eat it. Spoiled. Shi Fang didn't mind. He wiped the sweat off his forehead and smiled. Sister 8, every time I cook, you never miss a meal. Little Hachi glared at him. No one will think you're a mute if you speak less. Wu Yao had just finished a set of punches. When he heard this, he couldn't help but ask, can't all of you just stop for a day? Bickering every day. Even if you guys aren't tired of it, my ears are about to grow calluses. Both of them ignored him. However, Yu Jiu interrupted. Fifth brother, you can't persuade anyone anyway. Why do you have to do this every time? Wu Yao's eyebrows twitched. Practice your swordsmanship well. Yu Jiu didn't mind. She put away her sword and chuckled. What a coincidence. I've also finished practicing. Wu Yao couldn't be bothered with her. Yu Jiu walked to the chair next to her and immersed herself in it. Let's not talk about anything else. The heaven and earth energy here is abundant. It's quite suitable for cultivation. All right. He suddenly thought of something and stood up abruptly. 13 was called over by Master just now. What was it for? At that time he was focused on practicing his swordsmanship, so he didn't pay much attention. Little Hachi changed her fingernails. Oh, it seems that Master's master has taken a fancy to him? This kid has been jumping up and down happily these past few days. He didn't restrain himself at all. So he was seen by others. Yu Jiu nodded, but she was a little worried. This means, does that person want to take him in as a disciple? But he's Master's master. This isn't appropriate, right? That's not likely. However, there's an 80% chance that 13 will go to Lingxiao College. Wu Yao also walked over. Let's see what that kid says. Little Hachi scoffed. What's there to worry about? 13 is smart. Will he agree to go to Lingxiao College? That's true. It was rare for Shi Fang to agree with Little Hachi's words. He nodded. If he agrees, then we'll have taught a fool. At this moment, Cini walked out of the room. The few of them instantly straightened up. Big brother. Cini stood with his hands behind his back. His narrow and indifferent gaze swept across the few of them. He said calmly, 13 has his own opinions. Let him do whatever he wants. On the other hand, don't forget where you are. Be more vigilant about what you can and can't say. The few of them looked solemn. Yes. Cini nodded. He actually didn't care about the few of them. Ever since that incident with Master, they were much more vigilant about everything. Also, if you hear any unpleasant words these few days, ignore them. We'll discuss them after Master's wedding. At this point he glanced meaningfully at little Hachi. Little Hachi could only raise her hand helplessly. Got it? Can't you see that I haven't been going out these few days? There were a few times when she heard some people sneaking around and almost hit them. In the end she decided to just stay in Xianxia Mountain. Out of sight, out of mind. Only then did Tsin-Yi nod in satisfaction. Everyone, continue with your work. After Tsin-Yi finished speaking, he glanced into the distance again before retracting his gaze and returning to the room. After 13 finished speaking, the entire courtyard fell silent again. Chu Luiyue didn't know what to say for a moment. She could tell that 13 was speaking from the bottom of his heart. Lingxiao College might be full of temptation to others and was a holy land that they yearned for. However, this was clearly not the case for 13. She paused and wanted to persuade him again. 13, have you thought it through? If you go to Lingxiao College you'll only be cultivating. It doesn't mean that you'll leave us. After all, I'm also a student of the college, right? Once such an opportunity was missed, it wouldn't come again. However, 13's expression gradually became determined. He stared at Chu Luiyue and shook his head. Chu Luiyue suddenly felt a headache coming on. If it were little Hachi and the others she would just give the order directly. However, 13 was still a child. Nan Suhui sighed and smiled in relief. Forget it. It seems that this child isn't fated to be with Lingxiao College. There's no need to force it. Also, his talent doesn't seem to have been delayed. His cultivation progress is quite good. He should have a good master. Chu Luiyue tapped her finger lightly on the stone table. 13 naturally didn't have a master. He had always been brought up by Tsin-Yi and the others. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1799. Nan Suhui left with some regret. Before he left, he even reminded Chu Luiyue that 13 was indeed a good seedling and must be nurtured well in the future. Actually, Nan Suhui said this out of consideration for Chu Luiyue. After all, 13 was her subordinate. If he developed well, it would naturally be the best for her. 13 was still young and could not be seen clearly. Once he grew up, he would definitely not be underestimated. Chu Luiyue brought 13 and personally sent him out. When Nan Suhui's figure gradually disappeared into the distance, Chu Luiyue turned around and quietly looked at 13. 13 was a little nervous under her gaze and unconsciously lowered his head. Master, did I do something wrong just now? He asked nervously. Chu Luiyue looked at him. Follow me into the room. With that, she turned around and walked into the room. Shui, you go back first. Shui, who originally wanted to follow, looked a little disappointed when it heard this. It scratched its head and looked at her back reluctantly for a while. Oh. It would come back later. 13 hesitated for a moment but still followed. In the room, Chu Luiyue sat calmly. 13 stood not far in front of her, his hands clenched nervously. He lowered his head slightly and looked up at Chu Luiyue from time to time. 13, you did nothing wrong. After a long silence, Chu Luiyue spoke. But this did not make 13 relax. In his memory, his master had never spoken to him with such an expression and tone. He knew what it meant when he rejected Nan Suhui's suggestion, so he still felt uneasy. Although Lingxiao College is a place that many people dream of going to, it does not mean that it is the same for everyone. You have your own reasons for not wanting to go. In the past, I have never forced you to do anything and naturally I won't now. It's just that. She paused for a moment. Her gaze was as sharp as a knife as it swept past 13. I am a little surprised that you are so talented. 13 became more and more uneasy. I'm to blame for this. I should have paid attention to it back then, but I didn't know until now. From a certain point of view, she had neglected 13. 13 hurriedly said, No. This has nothing to do with Master. 13 should have taken the initiative to tell you. Chu Luiyue smiled. Actually, it doesn't matter now. The most important thing is that your talent hasn't been delayed. On this point, she and her master had the same view. For a cultivator to become an expert, many factors were needed. Talent was the undisputed first condition. However, this did not mean that you would definitely be able to grow if you had talent. Without the guidance of a good master, without enough patience and perseverance, no matter how good one's talent was, it would be wasted. Fortunately, 13 was not delayed. Hearing her say this, 13 was finally relieved. How does Tsin-Yi usually teach you? Chu Luiyue suddenly changed the topic and asked. 13 was stunned. Big brother just gave me a few books and told me to comprehend them myself. Then he told me to run. Big Brother said that when I can run faster than him, I'll be able to help you. The corner of Chu Liyue's mouth twitched. Did Cini really tell you that? 13 nodded honestly. Chu Liyue cursed inwardly. Cini was indeed as cunning as before. He even lied to a child. What realm was he at? What realm was 13 at? Who knew how much effort and time it would take for 13 to catch up to him? She asked him to take good care of 13, but he just painted a big picture for the child to see? Chu Liyue rubbed her glabella. 13 continued. Also, during those few years Big Brother wasn't around. I've been following 5th brother and 10th brother. Chu Liyue suddenly recalled that Xin Yi and Shijing had indeed stayed in Dehuang Swamp for a long time in order to help her guard the 9-colored heavenly pheasant. Thinking about it this way, 13 had been through quite a lot. It was really rare for him to be able to grow to his current state in such a chaotic situation. Chu Liyue thought for a moment and asked again. Who else knows about your talent? 13 hesitated for a moment and said softly, other than Big Brother and the others, no one else. In other words, everyone else in the 13U guard knew about this, but she, the master, was the only one who didn't know anything? Chu Liyue took a deep breath, closed her eyes and waved her hand. Go back and called Cini over. Cini soon arrived. After he pushed open the door and entered, Chu Liyue glanced behind him. 13 didn't follow him. Cini said, 13 hasn't finished his planned journey today, so I let him go first. Chu Liyue nodded. She had already asked everything that she should have asked. The remaining question should still be with Cini. You knew about his talent long ago. Why didn't you say anything? Chu Liyue went straight to the point. Cini's expression was calm. In the beginning I wanted to tell you, but I couldn't find the right time. Moreover, at that time his health wasn't very good. I thought that I would tell you about this after his condition stabilized. I didn't expect that too many things would happen later on, so it dragged on until now. Chu Liyue was stunned. Cini's words weren't without reason. But, you should have told me about such an important matter earlier. If I had known earlier. Master, you don't have to worry. 13's cultivation has been very smooth all these years. Although I didn't tell you in time, it's not too late for you to know now, right? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1800. Chu Liyue was speechless for a moment. She leaned against the back of the chair, her eyes drooping as she fell into deep thought. After a while she smiled helplessly. You're right. She never doubted Cini's loyalty to her. So even if Cini didn't do things according to her wishes, she wouldn't be angry or worried. Cini was extremely intelligent. Many times, it was indeed his existence that helped Chu Liyue avoid a lot of trouble. He was right. No matter when she found out about this, it didn't have much of an impact. Under their care, 13 still grew up well. The current him was already so outstanding that even her picky master wouldn't hesitate to praise him. That was already enough. Chu Liyue looked up at Cini. Cini stood there quietly, looking at her with a calm expression. His eyes were calm and composed. Take good care of 13 in the future. Cini smiled and bowed. Yes. Time quickly came to the day before the wedding. According to the rules, the two who were about to get married couldn't meet each other on this day. 36 respected Elder Ming came over with his men. His Highness the Saint ordered several embroiderers to rush through the night to make this. It took a full 3 months before it was finally completed. 36 respected Elder Ming put down the meticulously carved agarwood box and looked at Chu Liyue lovingly. Does your Highness want to open it to take a look? Chu Liyue seemed to feel something surging in her heart. She gently brushed her hand over the box and shook her head. Rong Xiao naturally gave me the best. This thing was so precious that she didn't even dare to open the box to take a closer look. Logically speaking, the bride's mother should be in charge of the wedding dress. But her mother had already passed away and couldn't do so. Rong Xiao helped her with all these things and didn't make things difficult for her at all. So much time had passed in the blink of an eye since they had pledged their love to each other. Chu Liyue suddenly felt very emotional. The outside was already bustling with noise and excitement. There were lanterns and colored banners everywhere, and the atmosphere was jubilant. The entire Yuntian Tower seemed to be immersed in a sea of joy. He had prepared this grand celebration for her. 36 revered Elder Ming looked kindly at Chu Liyue and suddenly said, Actually, this old man has a few words to say to your Highness. Is it convenient for Princess Consort? Chu Liyue came back to her senses and smiled. Respected Elder, you're treating me like an outsider by calling me that. Just call me you. 36 respected Elder Ming's gaze became even gentler. Good. In the future he would still address her as such in private. Seeing that Chu Luiyue had agreed, he waved his hand and dismissed his entourage. Soon only the two of them were left in the room. Chu Luiyue knew that what he was going to say had something to do with Rongxiu. Please take a seat. If you have anything to say, just say it. You will listen. 36 respected elder Ming nodded, walked to the window and sat down. Come and sit too. Chu Luiyue walked over and sat opposite 36 respected elder Ming. 36 respected elder Ming carefully sized up the girl in front of him. She was extremely beautiful and devastatingly beautiful. Her eyes were as bright as the galaxy. They were pure and sincere, and there was a rare calmness. Such a girl should be the most compatible with him. Actually, this old man didn't like you very much at the beginning. 36 respected elder Ming smiled and threw out these words. Chu Luiyue's gaze was calm. She knew that 36 respected elder Ming wanted to say more than this. 36 respected elder Ming blinked when he saw that she was so calm. Why do you look like you're not worried at all? Chu Luiyue's lips curled up slightly. You also said that it was at the beginning. If you still don't like me now, you wouldn't be telling me all this here, right? This girl is too smart. It's indeed not easy to fool her. 36 respected elder Ming suddenly felt defeated. These two, one was harder to deal with than the other. However, he quickly adjusted his emotions and narrowed his eyes, as if he was recalling something. You should know a little about Her Highness' background. Chu Luiyue nodded. Back then, her mother went out to train and accidentally met that man. She fell deeply in love with him. She knew that the people in the clan would definitely object to her finding a man with such a lowly background, so she privately pledged her life to him. She thought that she had found her true love, but she didn't know that the man was Emperor Yao Chen, and he already had a harem of 3,000. Since then she was disheartened and her health deteriorated day by day. In the end, before she died, she exhausted all her strength and hid Her Highness' identity. She thought that this would be foolproof, but she didn't expect that the people in the clan never gave up looking for her. Although she was gone, they still found Her Highness very quickly. At that time, everyone in the Yuntian Tower hated this matter to the core. They even felt ashamed of Her Highness' existence and planned to directly execute Her Highness. Fortunately, Her Highness summoned the infinite divine dial and displayed the most powerful bloodline power in the Yuntian Tower in the past 1,000 years. From then on, no one in the Yuntian Tower mentioned killing Her Highness anymore. At this point, 36 respected elder Ming's face revealed a trace of gratification, but it was quickly replaced by pity. However, this was only the beginning. Her Highness came from a special background and had no foundation. For a long time she was bullied in the Yuntian Tower. Although I could help her, I couldn't go too far. Otherwise it would only attract more jealousy and hatred. Time passed day by day and she gradually grew up. I don't know when it started, but she became cold, bloodthirsty and crazy. That's when his nickname, God of Slaughter, came into being. 36 respected elder Ming let out a long sigh. Although her strength increased day by day, her temperament seemed to become colder and colder. Sometimes, it even made people wonder if she had already cut off all her emotions and desires and became a puppet that only knew how to kill. Chu Luiyue's heart also moved slightly. Although she had some understanding of these matters before, today was the first time she had heard a complete description. Even though many years had passed and even Rongxiu himself mentioned it, she didn't care much. When she heard it, her heart still throbbed with pain. At this point, 36 respected elder Ming looked at Chu Luiyue. Fortunately, Her Highness met you later. Chu Luiyue pointed at herself. Me? Yes, you. 36 respected elder Ming seemed to have sunk into a distant memory. I remember that a few years ago Her Highness went out to train alone and didn't return for a long time. When I heard news of Her Highness again, she was already a student of Lingxiao College. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1801. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. She and Rongxiu had indeed met before going to Lingxiao College. At that time, she had just finished her training in the Dahuang Swamp and came to the Divine Ruins world by chance. In the end, she met Rongxiu directly. At that time, the two of them were being hunted down. In a moment of desperation, they chose to join forces. After a while, they got to know each other. After that, she said that she wanted to go to Lingxiao College to cultivate. Rongxiu agreed almost without hesitation. Chu Luiyue subconsciously thought that Rongxiu was like her, going to Lingxiao College. After all, although she was not familiar with the Divine Ruins world at that time, she had stayed in the Dahuang swamp for so long and heard a lot of relevant things. Lingxiao College was the top college in the Divine Ruins world. Who wouldn't yearn for it? Actually, at that time, the people at Yuntian Tower didn't know of your existence. They only thought that His Highness wanted to go to the college to cultivate. It wasn't until later when His Highness said that he wanted to return to Yaochen that I realized that something was wrong. At this point, 36 respected Elder Ming paused for a moment. You should know that His Highness doesn't have any feelings for Yaochen. If not for a special reason, he definitely wouldn't go back. Before that, Rongxiu had always claimed that he was ill and recuperating at Mingyue Tianshan. In reality, he had only stayed at Mingyue Tianshan for a very short period of time. Most of the time he still stayed in the Divine Ruins world. And that time His Highness didn't return for a long time. Later on, this old man met you. At first, he only thought that His Highness was infatuated with a woman, so he was a little unhappy. But later, he realized that it was precisely because of this woman that His Highness started to become like a normal person. He had 7 emotions and 6 desires, and he was tied down and lovesick. At that time, 36 respected Elder Ming thought that this woman was definitely not ordinary. It wasn't until later that he finally had the opportunity to meet Chu Luiyue. At first sight he fell in love with this girl. She was intelligent, quick-witted, and pure. He had met countless people in his life and his eyes were very sharp. After meeting Chu Luiyue, he liked him very much. That was why he gave him so many gifts. All these years, this old man has never seen Your Highness spend so much effort on anyone else. Except for you. All his joys and sorrows were probably caused by her alone. Your Highness has suffered a lot in the past and has almost no one close to you. Now that you've met a woman who's in love with you, it's really rare. In the future, I hope that the two of you can grow old together. 36 respected Elder Ming gently patted Chu Luiyue's hand and said solemnly. Chu Luiyue's nose tingled slightly, but a smile bloomed on his lips. All right. After 36 respected Elder Ming left, Chu Luiyue sat quietly in his room for a long time. By the time he recovered from his shock, he caught sight of the agarwood box by the side, and his heart skipped a beat. She stood up and walked over. There was no lock on the box, but there was a totem of the Yuntian Tower on the top. Chu Luiyue thought for a while and put the universe ring in her hand on it. The totem dissipated. Chu Luiyue reached out and opened the box. What entered her eyes was a stretch of red that was as intense and elegant as flames. It was like a piece of red cloud in the evening sky that was meticulously woven. It was soft and light to the touch, and there was a faint flicker of golden light. It was gorgeous, solemn, and moving. The phoenix coronet's craftsmanship was complicated, as if it was meticulously carved by the heavens. There was a golden phoenix spreading its wings and flying, and a bright red jade bead in its mouth. It was sparkling and translucent, and the quality was excellent. The tassels on both sides hung down, adding to the beauty and gentleness. Chu Luiyue's hand gently brushed across the phoenix coronet, and a thought suddenly appeared in her mind. She was really going to marry Rongxiu. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1802. Chu Luiyue slept soundly that night. She even had a long dream. In her dream, most of the time she and Rongxiu met, got to know each other and fell in love with each other. Those scenes kept flashing in her mind. Every scene was so vivid that it seemed like it happened yesterday. At this moment, Chu Luiyue realized that she and he were more than 10,000 miles apart. But in the end they were still together. People who were destined to be together would always hold each other's hands tightly no matter what. Early in the morning there was a knock on the door. Luyu? Luyu? Chu Luiyue was already awake. When she heard the voice, she knew that it was Mu Hongyu. She walked over and opened the door. Mu Hongyu rushed in excitedly. When she saw that Chu Luiyue still had her hair down, her eyes widened slightly. Luyu, why haven't you started to dress up? Chu Luiyue smiled helplessly. What's the hurry? Because she and Rongxiu were both in Yuntian Tower, and Chang'e Mountain was not far from Duming Peak, they could save a lot of tedious procedures. Moreover, the wedding ceremony would officially start at noon. There were still a few hours to go. Mu Hongyu thought about it and agreed. But maybe because it was her first time attending her best friend's wedding, she was very excited. Her heart was beating wildly and she could not calm down. But you still have to prepare early. Washing up, dressing up, changing into the wedding dress. These will take a lot of time. As Mu Hongyu nagged, she forcefully pulled Chu Luiyue to the dressing table and pressed her down on the chair. Today is your wedding, Luyu. Of course you have to dress up. You have to be the most beautiful bride. Mu Hongyu looked at Chu Liyue's soft hair. Her face was flushed and her almond-shaped eyes were bright. "Let me help you." After saying that, she prepared to attack. However, Mu Hongyu soon discovered a crucial problem. She didn't seem to know how to do her hair. Normally, she would tie her hair up simply, but on such a grand occasion, it was obviously not possible. "So, I've been studying it for a long time." She had spent a lot of time on this, but when it came to this, she realized that she wasn't skilled enough. If something went wrong, Poochie. A delicate laugh rang out, accompanied by the crisp sound of broken jade beads colliding against each other. "Let me handle this matter." Chu Liyue and Mu Hongyu turned around and saw little Hachi walking over with a smile on her face. She naturally took the wooden comb from Mu Hongyu's hands. Her voice was soft and charming, almost able to make people's bones melt. "Little girl, watch carefully." Mu Hongyu was stunned. The other party didn't seem to be much older than her, but her charm was too strong. Comparing the two, the difference was indeed quite big. Mu Hongyu nodded subconsciously and obediently said, "Oh." Little Hachi looked at her with a smile, then reached out and pinched Mu Hongyu's cheek. "Good girl." Mu Hongyu had never been teased by a woman like this before. She immediately blushed. Chu Liyue looked at little Hachi speechlessly. She was indeed attractive to both men and women. Little Hachi looked away and stared at Chu Liyue in the mirror. Then her lips curved into a smile. "Master, don't worry. No one is more beautiful than you today." After saying that, she began to help Chu Liyue comb her hair. Little Hachi's soft and silky hair seemed to be particularly obedient in her hands. She didn't see how she did it, but her fair and delicate fingers moved back and forth, and the luxurious and beautiful hairstyle gradually took shape. "Little girl, bring me the phoenix coronet," Little Hachi said gently. Mu Hongyu reacted and quickly responded. Chu Liyue pointed to the location. Mu Hongyu walked over and opened the wooden box. Soon after, she sucked in a breath of cold air. "Liu, this phoenix coronet is too beautiful." She had seen many treasures and jewelry, but none of them could be compared to this phoenix coronet. There was no way to describe it in words. The moment it entered her eyes, the only feeling it gave her was beautiful. There was even a trace of shock. Yuntian Tower was indeed a first-class family. This gift was indeed extraordinary. Mu Hongyu sighed as she carefully took out the phoenix coronet and handed it to Chu Liyue. Little Hachi glanced at it, and a satisfied smile appeared on her face. This was the only thing that was worthy of her master. She didn't hurry to help Chu Liyue put it on. Instead, she asked her to change into the wedding dress. This time, it was Mu Hongyu who carefully took out the wedding gown. After experiencing the baptism of the phoenix coronet, Mu Hongyu's mental endurance had increased a lot. After she helped Chu Liyue change, she covered her mouth and tried her best not to scream. However, her eyes, which were full of amazement, betrayed her feelings at this moment. Little Hachi raised her eyebrows proudly and began to put on Chu Liyue's makeup. She was very skillful with her hands, and this kind of thing was a piece of cake for her. Moreover, Chu Liyue was very beautiful. After a while, Little Hachi looked at Chu Liyue's face with satisfaction. That's right. Of course, on the wedding day she had to be the most beautiful. Then Little Hachi took the phoenix coronet and carefully helped Chu Liyue put it on. Mu Hongyu couldn't help but say, "Liu, I have never seen anyone more beautiful than you." Chu Liyue looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyebrows were slightly raised, her eyes were like stars, and her red lips were slightly red. She was dressed in a red wedding dress that was like clouds and rosy clouds. She was elegant and beautiful. For a moment she was in a trance. Indeed, even she had never seen herself like this. At this moment, a low and pleasant voice came from outside. I have come to pick you up." Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1803. It was a voice that she was very familiar with. Chu Liyue suddenly came back to her senses and turned her head to look. At this time the door was closed, but it was already lively outside. The sound of ritual music came faintly and lingered in her ears. She heard the laughter of many people. But in the noise of this world only his voice was the clearest. He said that he had come to pick her up. Chu Liyue stood up and walked towards the door. She put her hand on the door. It was slightly cold to the touch, but her palm was boiling hot. She took a deep breath and gently pushed the door open. Bright sunlight surged in an instant. She narrowed her eyes slightly and saw a face that could not be more familiar. She was slightly stunned. Today Rongxiu was wearing a red robe which was rare. A black jade belt around his waist easily outlined his waist, making his shoulders wider and his waist narrower, and his figure more slender. His face, which had always been like a banished immortal, seemed to be stained with the smoke and fire of the mortal world at this time, and was not as cold as before. Everyone was silent for a moment. Rongxiu's eyes also flashed with a touch of blazing amazement. The woman in the red wedding dress walked out from behind the door. There was a beauty clear and graceful. She could topple a city with one look and then a country with another. It was probably talking about such a beauty, right? In fact, many people present had seen Chu Luiyue before. She had an extremely beautiful appearance, but most of the time she was barefaced. Now she was wearing a phoenix coronet and a robe, which made people feel that she was a different person. There was actually such a woman in this world. When she appeared, everything around her seemed to dim. Only she was lively, bright, and extremely bright. The so-called disaster was probably nothing more than this. Or, a fairy with such an appearance should not have come to the mortal world in the first place. A year of silence. Everyone held their breaths and focused, as if they were afraid that they would disturb someone if they spoke. Chu Luiyue blinked. In an instant, it seemed that thousands of stars were surging. Rongxiu, she called out softly. Rongxiu stared at her as if he wanted to carve her appearance into his heart. The scorching heat almost made Chu Luiyue's entire body burn. After a while he finally reached out his hand. You, Chu Luiyue looked at his hand. His palm was thick and strong, and his palm was covered with a thin layer of calluses. Only she knew how warm that hand was. She reached out her hand. Almost immediately Rongxiu held her hand tightly. It was as if he was afraid that the person in front of him would disappear in the blink of an eye. It wasn't until he confirmed the soft and delicate temperature in his hand that he finally relaxed. He suddenly leaned over and whispered in her ear. You is truly, extremely beautiful. Chu Luiyue's face was slightly hot, but there was also an indescribable steadiness and warmth in his heart. Finally, I'm beside him. Rongxiu held her hand tightly. You come with me. The wedding ceremony was held in the ethereal hall. At this moment, the ethereal hall was already filled with guests. Almost all the people from the various clans and sects in the Divine Ruins world were gathered here. They were all waiting for the two main characters of the wedding. In the innermost seats were Xuanhuan Jing, Xuanhuan Yu, Chu Ning, and 36 respected Elder Ming. When the crowd saw this, they couldn't help but discuss. Shouldn't the seats at the top be reserved for the elders of the Holy Sun and the princess consort? Why is the one sitting there 36 respected Elder Ming? I don't even recognize the few people beside him. Haven't you heard? After that commotion, the clan head of the Yuntian Tower fell into a coma a few days after returning. He hasn't woken up yet. We all know what kind of background this Holy Sun has. Since the clan head is unconscious, the only one qualified to sit here is 36 respected Elder Ming. After all, he has been treating the Holy Sun like a teacher and father all these years. What you said makes some sense. But the three people beside him, where are they from? Could they be the princess consort's family? This? Hey, it's a long story. Do you see the one in the middle? That's the famous Xuanhuan Jing. A true weapon refining venerable. I heard that he's the princess consort's Taizu. And the other two seem to be the princess consort's fathers? I've heard that the princess consort of the Yuntian Tower was born in the Tianling dynasty outside the Divine Ruins world. But after a few twists and turns, she came to the Divine Ruins world with great difficulty. Since these two are her fathers, it's normal for them to sit here together. Normal? The one on the left is still alright. He's a demigod, but the one on the right is only a stage 4 warrior. It's difficult for such a person to see us normally. But now he's sitting in front of us and is more honorable than us. This princess consort is really amazing. You can't say that. Do you see the old man beside him? That's Nansu Huai, the dean of Lingxiao College. He's the princess consort's master. It's said that he dotes on his disciple very much to the point of doting on her. Be careful not to let him hear these words. We'll get into trouble later. Someone disagreed. So what? Most of the people here today are here for the sake of the Yuntian Tower. Besides, even if they really heard it, do you think they'll make a scene with us here? For the sake of a Xuanhuan Yu? Is really not worth it. Nansu slowly clenched his hands in his sleeves and glanced at the person who spoke. Xuanhuan Jing raised his eyes slightly and then quickly looked away. At this moment, accompanied by the music of the ceremony, the announcement was clearly heard. His Highness the Holy Sun has arrived. The Princess Consort has arrived. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 1804. The ethereal hall soon fell silent. Everyone raised their heads and looked toward the entrance of the hall. A perfect couple was walking over hand in hand. In an instant, all the light seemed to have gathered on the two of them. It was bright and dazzling. They clasped their hands and walked side by side towards the main hall step by step. There seemed to be an indescribable aura that shrouded the two of them, forming a small world that isolated them from the others. That small world could only contain the two of them. It couldn't contain anyone else. Xuanhuan Jing and the others were invigorated, and they subconsciously straightened their backs. 36 respected Elder Ming also felt a myriad of emotions in his heart. The Holy Sun had been thinking about this matter for far too long. Now he finally got what he wanted. He had never seen such an expression on the Holy Sun's face before. Joy, pride, and gentleness. There was also a myriad of emotions that he didn't conceal in the depths of his eyes. Everyone's gaze followed them, and there was only one person in his eyes. This scene was so beautiful that no one could bear to disturb it. Many of the people gathered in the hall had complicated expressions on their faces when they saw this scene. No one would have thought that the Holy Sun of the Yuntian Tower would really marry such a princess. Of course, many of them had interacted with Chu Luiyue before, so they didn't dare to underestimate her. All kinds of gazes fell on the two of them. Rong Xiu didn't mind and Chu Luiyue didn't mind either. They held hands tightly as if they would never separate. Finally, the two of them stood in the middle of the hall. Bow to the heavens and earth. The ceremonial official's voice was loud and clear. This voice reverberated clearly in the hall. Rong Xiu and Chu Luiyue turned around and bowed. Chu Luiyue didn't believe in the heavens or fate. However, after meeting Rong Xiu in this life, she would rather believe that this was the heavens taking pity on her. Even though they were separated by thousands of miles, he still came before her. Despite the disparity in their statuses, he had chosen her from the very beginning. Chu Luiyue's hand lightly scratched his palm. Rong Xiu held her hand even tighter. Second, bow to your parents. He turned around and bowed again. Chu Luiyue clearly saw Taizu's tightly clenched hands, as well as his father and father's slightly red eyes. In an instant, countless images flashed before his eyes. Imperial Father smiled dotingly and praised her proudly. The fire in the Tianling royal family's ancestral hall, as well as the bone-piercing pain. When he woke up again and dragged his body back to the Chu clan, the first thing he saw was his father's figure rushing over, and his father's anxious greeting. For her, he had been tossed around many places and had gone through many trials and tribulations. Even if his clothes were tattered and he was covered in wounds, he still insisted on seeing her one more time. The nervous and perturbed look in his eyes after knowing her identity. When he heard her call him Daddy, he was willing to give up everything. And along the way, the Taizu had protected him countless times. Chu Luiyue's eyes became hot, and the tip of his nose became slightly sour. Actually, she had always been loved and protected. No matter how much pain she had experienced, there was still a family that would become her warm arms. Husband and wife bow to each other. Chu Luiyue raised her gaze slightly and looked at Rong Xiu, looking into his deep, phoenix-like eyes. She saw her figure clearly reflected in them. She saw the gentleness and love in his eyes. Her red lips curved slightly and she smiled. To be able to marry your highness in this life, I have no regrets. Rong Xiu looked at her and smiled. He enunciated each word clearly. No, it should be said that to be able to marry you, Rong Xiu, is blessed by 3 lifetimes. Digression. There's no more in the morning, everyone go to bed early. There are probably more than 10 chapters during the day. Ahem, the chapters will drop around noon, 6 p.m. and 11 p.m. Please check. I heard that some people want me to update 50 chapters a day. Ahem, although I didn't manage to do it, but for the next 3 days I'll update more than 10 chapters a day. Mwah. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1805. The two of them bowed to each other. The ceremony is complete. As the chanter's clear voice spread throughout the grand hall, fireworks were set off from the numerous mountain peaks outside of Duming Peak. Bright patterns bloomed in the sky. Even during the day one could still see the sparkling radiance. 36 revered Elder Ming stroked his beard and sighed. The Yuntian Tower has not been so lively for a long time. Now that His Highness had finally gotten what he wanted, he was relieved. Rongxiu held Chu Liyue's hand tightly, and the two of them walked side by side toward the innermost part of the great hall. Over there was an honorable bench. It was obviously reserved for His Highness the Holy Sun and the princess consort. Crimson clouds with a red tail as thin as gauze silently streaked across the black jade floor. As she walked, the tassels on the phoenix coronet swayed gently. The woman's skin was as smooth as jade, and her eyes were like a painting. What was even rarer was that she exuded an indescribable aura of spirituality. Just by standing there, she already surpassed the thousands of sceneries in the world. Her thick and long eyelashes fluttered gently, and the light in her eyes was like a gust of wind, gently stirring the thousands of stars in the night sky. Rongxiu looked at her, his eyes deep. At this moment he knew that everyone's eyes were focused on her. If it was in the past, he would definitely be unhappy. But today was different. This was their wedding. From now on she was his princess consort. She was so dazzling and magnificent. She was his. The most moving treasure in the world was finally in his hands. The two of them sat down. Rongxiu reluctantly retracted his gaze from her and looked at the crowd in the great hall. After the ceremony, it was time for the banquet. But before the banquet began, there was still an extremely important process to go through. Gifts from the various families. After all, the Yuntian Tower was a first-rate family in the Divine Ruins world. It was famous and had a noble status. Now that it was the wedding of the powerful Holy Sun, Rongxiu, of course, the various families had to prepare generous gifts to celebrate. The richness of this congratulatory gift was very important. On the one hand, it reflected the wealth and background of the person who gave the gift. On the other hand, it also showed that they were close to the Yuntian Tower. Today is Ai's wedding. Welcome everyone. If there is any neglect, please forgive me. Rongxiu said as he raised his glass. Everyone raised their glasses as well. The hall was bustling with noise and excitement. Chu Liyue sat next to Rongxiu. When he picked up the wine cup in his hand, he found that it had been replaced with green tea. She pursed her lips slightly and took a sip, hiding the smile in her eyes. Then she put down her wine glass. Rongxiu tilted his head. Is it tasty? His gaze fell on her moist and full lips, and his eyes suddenly darkened. Chu Liyue blinked and nodded. It was rare for her to be so obedient and a little naive. She was like a cat that had put away its sharp claws and turned into a soft ball, making people want to hold her in their arms. Rongxiu's fingers gently rubbed the wine cup twice and looked at the bright and warm sunlight outside. It was only noon. He drank the rest of the wine in one gulp. For the first time he felt that time was so unbearable. The sect master of the celestial sect gives 2,000-year-old flying frost immortal pearls. The sect master of the purple phoenix sect gives a pair of night sea coral screens. The house master of the snowstorm house gives a green color great origin pill. The announcer's voice kept ringing. Chu Liyue raised her eyebrows slightly. The Yuntian Tower's status in the world of divine ruins was indeed very high. Almost all the gifts given by the families were rare treasures. Ordinary families and clans had never seen them before, let alone give them away. Only the real big families and clans could have such confidence and foundation. Rongxiu listened at the side with a faint smile on his lips, and his eyes were relaxed. Everyone watched from below and sighed with emotion. It turned out that this god of slaughter could also show such a smile. And all of this was obviously because of the woman beside him. Time passed slowly. In the main hall there was a low discussion. Those who have presented their gifts are all first-rate families in the world of divine ruins. It's obvious that they are all here because of the Holy Sun. But why hasn't the princess's people come out to present their gifts until now? Someone asked doubtfully. You don't know? The princess that the Holy Sun married is from outside the world of divine ruins. This time, for the wedding ceremony, they specially invited the princess's father and friends. But, you know that kind of background, what good things can they bring? Someone laughed mockingly. When the families and sects in the world of divine ruins finish presenting their gifts, it should be their turn, right? But I guess, there's nothing to see. Why not? I'm looking forward to seeing what the relatives and friends of this princess, who has won the Holy Sun's favor and insisted on marrying no one else but her, will send. If they are all unpresentable, wouldn't the scene be exciting? Ah, tsk. You're really cunning. I like it. That scene, just thinking about it makes me feel good. When that time comes, I'm afraid Rongxiu won't be able to hold back his face. Everyone laughed secretly. In the past few years, Rongxiu had been famous in the world of divine ruins. Some people envied and respected him while others were jealous and resentful. There were also some who wanted to marry Yuntian Tower, but were directly rejected by Rongxiu. How could the women in their families not be better than this lowly Xianhuan? Although everyone present was talking and laughing, many of them had their own plans in their hearts. There were more than one or two people who wanted to see a joke. If this princess was embarrassed today, it would be equivalent to the holy sun Rongxiu losing face. Although many people lowered their voices, the ethereal hall was only so big, and most of the people present were top-notch experts. Who wouldn't be able to hear them? He had said that on purpose. On one hand, many of the clans present were first-rate clans, and they weren't inferior to Yuntian Tower. On the other hand, they felt that they were speaking the truth. If the truth was unpleasant to hear, how could they not be allowed to speak it? 36 respected Elder Ming frowned and looked at Rongxiu. However, he saw that Rongxiu's expression was normal, as though he didn't care about these words. He turned his gaze and looked at Chu Luiyue. Find this person is still smiling. 36 respected Elder Ming sighed in his heart. I really can't see through them. At this moment, Shengguanjing suddenly spoke. Yuer. This low and deep voice immediately attracted everyone's attention. The ethereal hall fell silent. Chu Luiyue looked over. Taizu? Shengguanjing smiled. Yuer, you and Rongxiu have finally come to fruition today. Taizu is happy. Taizu is used to living a carefree life, and he hasn't saved anything for you over the years. He doesn't have anything else to give you. Take this. As he spoke, he took out a bronze universe ring from his hand. Chu Luiyue smiled like a flower. Anything given by Taizu is naturally the best. Taizu waved his hand and said casually. It's just 6 supremacy god artifacts. What's so good about them? In the future, Taizu will personally forge a few more for you. At the very least, they have to be perfect. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from LoveNet. Chapter 1806. Everyone in the ethereal hall gasped in astonishment. 6 supremacy artifacts. Are you kidding me? One had to know that to most of the people present, obtaining an Emperor Divine artifact was already a great thing. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been a few clans who fell out with Lingxiao College over the Crimson Heaven Sword. They knew that Shengguanjing was a supremacy blacksmith, so it was within their expectations that he would give out supremacy artifacts. However, they didn't expect Shengguanjing to give out 6 supremacy artifacts right off the bat. He even promised to give out a few more to make up for the 10 supremacy artifacts. Were supremacy artifacts as common as cabbages these days? Everyone was stunned. What they didn't know was that even though Shengguanjing had always been a loner, he had never lost to other blacksmiths of the same level. Every time, not only would he forge a supremacy artifact for himself, he would also win the treasures that the other party had painstakingly forged. Even if they were slightly inferior to Ouyangming's, they were still genuine venerable artifacts. Putting everything else aside, when it came to supremacy artifacts, he was indeed rich. Furthermore, it was the kind of wealth that no one present could match up to. Seeing Shengguanjing's casual attitude, many people felt as though they had been slapped in the face. They were just mocking the princess consort's relatives for not being able to give out anything valuable, but Shengguanjing was the first to give out a trump card. Just these 6 supremacy artifacts alone were already more valuable than most of the other supremacy artifacts. Chu Luiyue was also a little surprised. She knew that Taizu should have some valuable artifacts, but she didn't expect Taizu to give out 6 supremacy artifacts at once. After a brief moment of shock, Chu Luiyue took the artifacts with a smile. Thank you, Taizu. Shengguanjing laughed heartily. It's good that you are like it. Hurry up and put it on. Chu Luiyue was wearing the holy ring that Rongxiu gave her on her right hand. After pondering for a moment, she decided to put the one that Taizu gave her on her left hand. After trying it on, only her thumb fit. Looking at it now, it looked more like a thumb ring. Everyone's faces paled as they watched from below. At this moment, Shengguanyu had a ring on his left hand that contained 6 venerable grade divine artifacts. The holy ring on his right hand symbolized the supreme status of the Yuntian Tower. Just this alone was enough to make many people look up to him. At this moment, Nan Suhui burst into laughter. Senior Shengguan gave such a valuable gift right off the bat. It's really embarrassing. Everyone turned to look. What did the dean of Lingxiao College intend to give her? Chu Liyue's eyes curved into crescents. Master has already given you, many things. No matter what Master gives you, will like it. You brat. Nan Suhui snorted with a smile. This was the truth. Previously, when Yuer was still in the academy, he had indeed helped her open many back doors. But now that it was her wedding, she naturally had to prepare a generous gift. Nansu Huai took out 2 green jade tokens. Chu Liyue's heart skipped a beat. She seemed to have thought of something as shock flashed in her eyes. Could it be? This green jade token symbolizes the status of an elder of Lingxiao College. Those who hold this token can enter and leave Lingxiao College at will and enjoy the treatment of an elder. As he spoke, he flicked his wrist. The 2 green jade tokens flew to Chu Liyue and Rong Xiu. The 2 of them reached out to take the tokens. Chu Liyue took a closer look and saw her name engraved at the bottom of the token. Yo. She turned her gaze and saw the word Xiu engraved on Rong Xiu's green jade token. Just inject your force into it and it will be activated, Nansu Huai said with a smile. Chu Liyue nodded. She held her breath and injected some force into the token. Buzz. The green jade token shone brightly. A number gradually appeared. Chu Liyue opened her eyes wide. This is... Nansu Huai saw her expression and smiled even more proudly. I have already deposited some points inside. This should be enough for the 2 of you to use for a while, right? There is such a bonus. It was a pleasant surprise. How could it only be used for a while? Chu Liyue felt that even if she did whatever she wanted, she would not be able to spend it all in 10 years. Outsiders might not know what this number meant. But she knew. With these points, wouldn't she be able to pick the herbs in the Medicine Wind Valley as she wished? Wouldn't she be able to read the xianxia medical books in the library as she wished? The gift that her master had given her had truly hit the bottom of her heart. Chu Liyue raised her head, her eyes shining brightly. Thank you, master. She suddenly felt that master was more amiable. Nansu Huai raised his finger and shook it. Actually, these are not the most important things. Do you know the most important thing about this green jade token? Chu Liyue was stunned. The green jade token was exclusive to the elders of the school. Master did not mean that she and Rong Xiu would become the elders of the school. He only meant to give them the green jade token. Then, did it mean something else? Nansu Huai put one hand behind his back and raised his chin slightly. He still had a smile on his face, but there was a hint of dignity in his eyes that could not be disobeyed. The holder of the green jade token will receive the highest protection of the Lingxiao College. If anyone hurts you, the Lingxiao College will avenge you at all costs. Every word was sonorous and forceful. It was like a clap of thunder that exploded in everyone's ears in the main hall. Everyone looked at each other and suddenly understood something. Nansu Huai was going to protect Xuanhuan to the end. What did he mean by that? Lingxiao College would not stand by and do nothing if someone were to offend them in the future. Rong Xiu was the holy son of the Yuntian Tower, so he did not need these things. It was obvious that these things were specially prepared for Xuanhuan. In the past, Nansu Huai had always stood behind her and stood up for her as the master of Xuanhuan. In the future, the entire Lingxiao College would be her backing and trump card. Anyone who was afraid of Lingxiao College would have to be afraid of Xuanhuan in the future. How was this a gift? It was clearly a gift of power. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.